And we are now live. Thank you for being patient, ladies and gentlemen. I know there were some people waiting. I actually had more people waiting for this stream than the one I did earlier today, but people love the Perch. People love the Perch. They love the little bear who has teeth, who also wants his honey, which is his money. And don't worry, ladies and gentlemen, the reason Perch was late, we were having to get him cleaned up. It was kind of a leaving Las Vegas comic book style situation, you know. I can quit anytime I want.
Cold shower, get yes, exactly.
Captain Willard from Apocalypse Now, like on a mission for sir, whatever the charges, you know.
That's exactly right.
Throw him in the shower. It's like proceed up the Nung River, but Navy patrol boat. But thank you for joining me. It's been like 2 months, dude. It's been like May is the last time you were on. It's been a busy 2 months for you.
It's been a busy summer. Yeah, there's a lot going on, and no, it's been very, very busy. I mean, hopefully the audio is better this time. Last time I was on one of these, I had terrible connection.
That's right, with DC Fans United. Yeah, well, guys, you had a thunderstorm and he had a bad mic, so it was like. And it was because we figured out that apparently he had a wire that was crossed in his headset. He had finally got a new one, and it sounds crystal clear because it sounded like he was in a snowstorm the entire time. Like So it was kind of a yikes kind of situation. But yeah, it's great. I mean, to have you back on. I mean, like you're putting out some tweets from San Diego Comic-Con that actually maybe kind of like just the people watch and like maybe not blackmail people, but.
I didn't do nearly enough. So I think next con I'll go to will probably be the New York con. The thing I let people down, I did not take any photos, or I took photos, but nothing that anybody would have really cared about. I was on the floor very, very little. I was mainly doing meetings and catching up with some people. So it was a very different show. I also wanted to get over to talk to Rags, and by the time I got there, it was done. So that was late in the day, but it was a busy show. It's interesting though. The San Diego Comic-Con, I think I've been going, I've missed a year or two here or there, but for about 25 years now straight.
Okay.
And it's interesting to watch it change. It's definitely a different show, and it's not at all what it used to be. And I mean, for a lot of people, it's better. I think for the industry and for the money and for people trying to make a profit off it, it's certainly better. You've got a lot more media there. You've got, of course, I mean, it's not about comics anymore. We've talked about this before. But it's, you know, it should, when you see something like this and you see the amount of people and the amount of cash and the amount of big business coming into it and wanting to do something with comics, you get the feeling that a lot more should be happening in our hobby. And so it's a good news, bad news thing. You see the attention. At the same time, you also see that the comics itself, the actual physical, well, or even digital, the idea of panels and stories and that kind of stuff it's not that it's on the decline. It's just turning into niche very, very quickly. The best, a creator I caught up with had this analogy. He said, if you ever gone to a Target or to a Walmart and they've got the main toy section and you have this weird little area where you have all the kind of custom figures, the Todd McFarlane figures or the Adult Swim figures that are kind of put out in a corner. And that's what comics are now. They're there, but they're it's a novelty.
You're funny you mentioned that, because at my Walmart, I was picking up a new headset. One I had only the last 2 months, wire got frayed because everything's made cheap now, plastic.
Mm-hmm.
So picking that up, and near the checkout aisles, they have the Yu-Gi-Oh cards and stuff. They have the McFarlane, like the Walking Dead figures. They have like the Gears of War figures, all those deluxe McFarlane figures. And right next to them, they had those previous 3-pack sets of comics DC put out. Marvel did as well, but Marvel charged like $9 or something for like a 3-pack of comics, like Champions #1, like stuff like. But DC, not only did they had their old 3-packs, they had them new 100-page Giants, which I know that's kind of a controversial thing for retailers because it's I see it as a good thing. As a consumer, as a customer, I see it as a good thing considering it's more people have more access to Walmarts than they do comic shops. Because my area, the closest comic shop is an hour away. There's like 3 comic shops within an hour of each other. Like you have to go hour one way, hour another, like hour east, hour west, hour south, and it's northeast. So it's to get to a comic shop to actually see comics in there with a new story. Granted, it's not that big, and a lot of, one's got the first part of the Hush story arc, another one's got the Superman one has the Superman Batman, the Public Enemies, which is a great starting point for new readers. It's in that same aisle. It's in that niche section, but it's up near cash registers where everybody could see it. So,
yeah, I think it's. I picked up the big books. I know there's been some controversy over it. I see in the chat, Feisty, a couple other people are here. My very firm position on it, and I've got data, I've got lots of proof, is that when Walmart carries books, it's good for us. It's good for shops. It's good for comics. It's the more material out there, it is better. We are in a mode where, not to be dramatic about it, it's like survival. Too many people don't know comics exist, or it's this kind of, again, very, very niche, very joke kind of product. So when stores, and what we benefited, if you look at the 80s and 90s, when Safeway and the grocery stores, Kroger or whatever, had comics there on the spinner rack. I mean, I didn't like the spinner rack. It ruined the comics, but it drove people into stores. And it was slow in some cases, but it reminded people that, kids are out there, they want the books, there are comics, and you sit there and you read and you see them. And so it's a good thing. It's always a good thing. A lot of, very weird reactions. I mean, that was a topic down at Comic-Con. It was like, what are we going to do about DC that's doing this with Walmart? They're a bunch of traders. It's like, you guys, it's money in our pockets. The more this stuff is out there, it draws back. There's not a world where people are going to stop coming to comic book stores and only go to Walmart. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. It's good. So, embrace more content out there is good. If it's going into Loot Crate, if it's going into GameStop, wherever it's going, more comics out there help comic shops. And there's endless proof about this. And so I'm of the mind, and I'll take that even further, by the way. I think, the Kickstarters, the Indiegogos, the more people producing things, the more comics are out in the wild, whether it's in retail shops or it's online or it's shared on Facebook, whatever it is. If somebody just posted in the chat, the more exposure, the better. That is 100% true. It's what comics needs. Our enemy right now is less exposure. Our enemy is people just not knowing that the comics are out there, or just sticking to the movies or the shows, or whatever it is. Comics, more exposure, better. There's no, I mean, I always try and see both sides of an argument. That is the dumbest argument that I've seen of the last couple months, is that, this Walmart thing is threatening. And I got into I wouldn't say an aggressive argument, but we had both been drinking plenty. And I just I'm a pretty calm guy, but I'm like, you guys, fuck you. Sorry. No,
cuss. No, the thing about it is there's no limits. Just no death threats.
No demonetization here. No, go.
No demonetization. I'm not monetized. No, as long as there's no death threats or that kind of thing, we're good. We're good. I have no limits.
No, it's just get comics out there. It's better. I think there's a very small window that we're in for about 2 to 3 years, where if we got to go hard at comics and publishing comics, because the movies are popular right now. I do think, Marvel's got an amazing trick on their hands with trying to land Infinity War 4 or Avengers 4 well. If they can do that and they have a good next plan, the Fox move, well, as a fan, I think that's painful. The reality is Disney will do better for that property than Fox was going to do for that property in terms of raising awareness of comics. So the more, the better. But there is a saturation point. There's something will come along that will be more exciting than comics, and this stuff will start to wind down. So we've got to take advantage of this. The more, the merrier. And this is where all the little online fights and other bullshit that's going on right now, it's gotta stop, because this window will close on us. We've got to get the comics out there.
Yeah, that's the thing. I've been noticing the niche, the idea of just being in the niche section, like with those DC 100-page, which really that's probably the best place for them, because you look at most magazine racks at Walmart, everything's so messy. Like these ones, I don't know. Have you seen one in the wild? Have you seen one of these DC 100-page giant displays in the wild?
Oh yeah, no, definitely, okay. Yeah.
The Superman one, they had one for Superman, one for Batman, one for Justice League. well, mainly had Just League stuff stacked in there. But one of the Superman stacks of the 2-pack, the Superman was empty, like it was moving, so that's good. But they used the dressing of the crying Superman from the second part, the Kurt Swan Superman. After the Legion of Superheroes shows up, gives him like, hey, here's a statue. Use the Phantom projector, and he's like crying, and he's like, "Well, sorry, we're sold out." Like it's actually really well done.
No, smart.
And yeah, exactly, very smart. Which honestly surprised me, because some of DC's moves lately have been a little concerning, little like Marvel 2.0. I've been joking, but it's this, but this niche thing, and it's not just for the way they display, way they treat, but it's also these people that, hey, we're doing crowdfunding books, but they're going for, like, there was one brought up the other day, for a book, it's called Rebel Yell or something. It's like the Southern Hero, but then you start, it's kind of like Stars and Bars, but it's circles and bars instead of stars. I'm like, you can go, either you go all the way, or you don't go at all. That's the way I look at it. But a lot of these, these projects, it's like, you're going into a niche, like, yeah, let's offend some people. I'm like, you know what? I want a comic that like anybody can kind of read. Like, I don't want like, kind of move towards one particular group or another. It's like the idea, like, it's like, oh, it's X-Men, but with this slant, so it's like appeals to this kind of person. Like, there's so much potential out there. It's like, seems like money left on the table for a lot of these books. And I mean, it just doesn't have, like, if Marvel's attempt at X-Men just ain't your thing, do your own thing. That's what basically Cyberforce was and Wildcats. There's multiple X-Men books coming out in the 90s, and a lot of them pretty good. Not like, they weren't, granted, are they the, ground shaking, amazing, like, no, but they were good, solid, entertaining books. And the entertainment thing is most important, because comics are entertainment. And this idea that there's some kind of, the idea of comics becoming high art, and like you were mentioning, like that idea I think has ruined comics. It's no longer kids stuff, and it's not, it's the, it's this kind of want to be mature. It's like this weird teenage rebellious, like, look at me, man, I'm serious, and it's so childish.
It's stupid, because I mean, the people are fucking idiots. So because the reality is, there are hundreds of comics. So you can have your Watchmen, you can have your Authority, you can have your Stormwatch, you can have your whatever it is, and you can have your Teen Titans Go, and it does not matter. There's so many comics out there that to try and dictate that they've all got to be a certain way, they've all got to be serious, or they've all got to be social, or whatever it happens to be. That's just the dumbest perspective. And anyone who owns a shop, or anyone who's trying to actually make money off this, it knows that not all customers are the same. They're not all clones of each other. You need to have something that kids are going to like. You need to have something that adults are going to like. You need to have fun. You need to have, your serious, depressing comics. You need to have it all. And, there are definitely some screwed up stuff in the industry. We've talked about it plenty, but it doesn't have to be this all or nothing kind of mentality that you see on Twitter and you see people talking about. I mean, I get people want to protect their own little, front yards, but for Christ's sake, I mean, it's something I posted last night that got me pissed off, and I wound up irritating both sides like usual. But there are, if you make it into comics, then you've made it. You're having a good time. Why screw that up? I mean, why spend your time bitching about what other people are doing? You've made it. So just be happy with what you've made. Enjoy your little corner of the world. Stop trying to mandate what everybody else does. It's just stupid.
It really is. Like you're pointing out, and like the idea that like you pissing off both sides, that's perfect. That means you are cutting through the bullshit to the fact that these people, it's like there's echo chambers on both sides. Don't, anybody says otherwise, they're full of shit. And like I'm seeing like certain things like like a lot of these the $25 plus shipping and handling for 60-page comic bullshit. I'm getting fucking sick and tired of seeing the shilling. I've had to mute so many fucking people. It ain't funny. It's like the very, like, I've stopped shilling. Like, there was like, I'll promote the book maybe once a week, if that much, and I'm done. I'm like, day after fucking day after fucking day of, hey, this book, this stretch goals bullshit. You made your money 10 times over. Chill the fuck out. I'm tired of seeing.
I agree. No, it's look, I mean, good for you. You found a model where you can make $25 off a book and people are happy with that. I mean, great. I hope this stuff starts shipping soon and people get the content in their hands. But I would ask, humbly ask some of these creators, you know, try this other approach. Instead of going for the stretch goal for the next, you know, hey, it's a fancy cover, which really resembles the 90s a lot of, you know, different cover variants a lot. Yep. Instead of doing that, go for issue 2 and then issue 3 and then issue 4 and actually build a business. I mean, it doesn't all have to be one and done. Hey, let's see if we can run up more numbers than what Kwanzaa got. I mean, who gives a shit? Christ, who cares? I mean, nobody cares about this brawl. Who's reading comics? They want good comics. So if you're a fan of Jawbreakers, and there's a lot of people that are, awesome. Let's focus on getting an issue 2 and issue 3 and issue 4 out. Put the effort toward that, and that's awesome. That would be great. Doing, you know, just trying to run up a huge number for one issue is great for, you know, whose dick is bigger, but it's not. It doesn't build a business. And I want these guys to build a business. They need to understand, you know, the people.
Exactly. As much as I dislike Richard and the way his tactics, and even Ethan for that, I used to be on Ethan's side, and I'm like, oh, this and that. And then I started like, wait a second, I'm not really a fan of him. But guess what? More business, as much as I dislike them personally, the more, like with Joe Bob Briggs, I was watching an interview with Joe Bob Briggs. It's like they were talking about, like, everybody has these phone, like, cameras that can shoot almost video quality. Like, there was that guy that shot a movie on an iPhone. And it actually looked pretty good. It actually good cinematography, because if you know what you're doing, you can make anything look great. The more movies, same thing with more comics, the better. The more choice there is. Like, oh, it's, you know, people say, oh, diversity, oh, it's horrible. No, diversity as in different voices, not just, oh, he's got a black person, or he's got, you know, somebody that's Asian or handicapped. Like, this stuff goes both ways. It's like, I was like that John Del Ra's book. It's called Flying Sparks, I think it's called. The interior art looks good. The cover is a mail-in cover. Doesn't work for me. It looks flat. It looks like one of those 90s Liefeld covers, not the good ones that are memorable because they're so horrible, like the giant chest on Captain America or anything. But one of the stretch goals is we have a disabled military veteran name, and then give his name something, and, you know, doing one of the covers. I'm like, why does it have to be? Why do you have to go and, like, tell me he's disabled and a military veteran? Apparently, the guy was like, he was fired for saying something about transgender people, whatever. And so, like, it's like this. Wow, you got two guys on the book that, you know, like two guys doing the covers, and not the guy doing the interiors, who to me is a better artist than both these guys doing the covers. But what do I know? But also, it's another $25 book or something. It's like one of those kind of deals.
It's just. It's just a wrong. I mean, look, I'm it's hard because on one hand, you know, that's noble, great. Having a disabled veteran do some stuff, that's great. I applaud it. All fine. But what wins right now is volume, and I think that's. I had a lot of conversations down at the Comic-Con. Sorry for veer us back into this topic so quickly, but it is what is necessary for comics and shops and interest and readership and everything else is volume. And I'll make the argument this way. If, you know, lots of people have complained about Marvel rebooting constantly, doing #1s constantly, even DC, there's not a longevity feeling, and a lot of fans who want to rely on something. If you can take yourself out of the politics and social justice and all that stuff for one moment and just step back, look at, you know, Saga. It's you know, Image comic, heavy on social topics, plenty of, you know, transgender character. They show a penis and, you know, blah, 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 blah. But it has an extremely loyal fan base. When it came out a week ago and it's announced it was going on a year-plus hiatus, that had an impact in the shop. I'm curious, the other people who run shops, I'm curious if they heard the same thing, because that was a moment where fans are coming in unhappy, sad that a comic was leaving. And that's the kind of reaction I want to see. I want to see people so attached to a book that they're like, crap, it's going to go away for a year. That's bad. So what that has to do with volume is the more books that are out there, the more regularity that's out there, the more people can trust and feel like they've got a comic that they can rely on month in and month out. That is what fans desperately desire. And that's what builds readership over time. So I do think, you know, whether it's Ethan's stuff or on both sides, I'll be completely fair about it. Whether it's Kwanzaa stuff, Ethan's stuff, Richard's stuff, look, it doesn't matter. Go for lots of issues. Just, you know, and if it's not your passion, if your passion is to do graphic novels, okay, that's fine. But what I need and what comics as an industry needs is consistent, ongoing series that people can rely on of all different types. You know, make one that's military, make one that's, you know, super gay, make one that's for kids. Whatever you want to do, that's great. Just keep making it and keep pumping it out and give people something that they can rely on that will go for a year, 2 years, 3 years, because anyone who's going to follow a series over many months and many years will start picking up more comics. And then pretty soon they're following 2 and then 3 and then 4. And anyone who runs a shop will tell you that it's like crack. You never stop with one. You get a dozen. And before you know it, you have a giant pull box, and then you're carting out $50 worth of comics every week, and that sucks for, you know, I'm sure lots of people. Good for me.
That's how I was, man. For like from 2005 to the day before Thanksgiving, that Wednesday before Thanksgiving, 2008, $50 a week minimum for me.
Yeah.
From like, you know, so just January 2005 to that, and it was, I mean, I had a lot of comics at the end of the day. Hey, shop was doing well, you know, for for that much going in, but
sure.
To make you care, the idea to make you care for these books. Hey, you know, people want to do. I know people, they just want to do original graphic novels released maybe once every year, year and a half, depending on how long. Because if they're not drawing it themselves, they're writing it. They have to pay for the artist to do like half the work up front, and then, you know, out of their own pocket, and then do a Kickstarter or crowdfunding of some kind to pay for the rest. And it's, you know, like whatever method they choose to do it. And that's all great, but a year, year and a half between, you know, stories coming out, you know, you might gain some readers. You might, hey, release some samples. Hey, here's the first 20 pages free, something like that, whatever. Here's a free preview. It isn't, you know, what helps shops, what helps, you know, consistent, like I said, consistency, this idea of making you care, making you want to keep coming back to the well. If only thing that really stops me from doing consistent work, other than me getting pulled multiple different things and everything, is the price to print books. Now, with the alternative method they're coming out with, Peter Simetti, he's like, had this little sign up thing. I don't think it's 100% right now, but 500 comics for $250, cheap as 50 cents a piece, full color newsprint, made in America. I think it's printed down in Portland somewhere, or Portland area, Beaverton, maybe even somewhere in Oregon. I want to say it was Portland, something like that. But comics being printed in America, not in Canada, not overseas with that print engine, all this and that, but it's offset newsprint comics that somebody could sell to a shop directly, or have it through Diamond. I know Diamond's a pain in the ass to deal with, especially if you're trying to get your book in there and also get your books. Oh, and that bullshit you're saying from there from San Diego, we didn't damage anything this year, some bullshit like that, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, no, there's a lot of stuff going on, and I think you know, somebody mentioned in chat. I'm kind of trying to follow along this time, be a better guest. You know, that's true, and I want to be fair about this. I mean, you use Jawbreakers, and I never know. Somebody needs to tell me. Is it Zach? Is it Richard? Is it Meyer? Now he's given the interview. What do we want to do? But he's been very upfront consistently that he doesn't want to be a comics pro. He doesn't want to do this regularly, and that's cool.
He already is. But he already is. That's the problem. You make that money.
He's there. Yeah, exactly. So it's the industry's pregnant at this point. It's there. It's too late. The book's out there. He's generated a lot of money, and he should be applauded for the amount of money he's generated. So he's done something to the industry that is positive in a way, which is good. So what he needs to do now is, if he doesn't want to consistently do it, which is totally fine, his choice, you know, license out his property is one option. Do something that will create consistency in the business. He's found an interest to his comic with an audience. Now, I don't know if that is because he's rebelling against the status quo, or if they actually like the characters. That we won't know until the comic ships. But let's say they like the characters. Great. License off the properties. Take it to Alterna. Take it to someone, and and create consistency and build a business. And if it's not, and so if you don't want to be a comics pro, great, be a business pro. License off, make money off the side, and let somebody else do it. There's a ton of routes here to take. The key is all these people doing the Indiegogos and the Kickstarters and everything, find a way to turn that into monthly business. And that's what we need.
Well, even the idea of going, so I used to read Atomic Robo a lot until like I had some issues where I wasn't able to pick up books on a regular basis, and I was picking it up, and also had a run in with Clevenger and Wegner at Heroes Con one year, and they were really. I was like, previously year I'd actually bought original artwork and stuff like that. So it was put down a pretty good chunk of change from some Atomic Robo work, and picked up 2 commissions I commissioned, and so I was like, I put down a couple $100. I come back to here and I was like, and I've met people, Heroes Con, and never talked to them face to face till like the next year or even a year or 2 prior. And like they remember me. I'm, I guess, memorable enough to point like, hey, watch out for this guy kind of thing. I don't know. But they were extremely rude, and I felt like I was like, wow, this is like, paying customers. That's really polite. The way you're so like, I stopped reading their books, but I like the idea of a series of miniseries, like self-contained adventures, like 5 issues, like 4 or 5 issues, and like what Alterna does, and Alterna's in the chat, which is kind of funny to see them show up, talk about them, and they appear. Candyman.
Alterna is a great company, by the way. I think the way they act on social media, which a lot of people praise them for, that's great. To me, that's table stakes. I think every publisher should be acting that way on social media. I praise them, but I feel always kind of bad about praising them, because really we have to praise publishers for being just normal professional to customers. That seems kind of sad to me, but here we are. Yeah. And so great job. But I think they just mentioned something. Diamond. I mean, Diamond is shit, and there's just it's just painful that they are who they are. There's zero reason why they can't make reorders easier. There's no reason with today's digital age and the technology we have on our hands and everything else that they can't adapt their business model to make reorders simple and painless. And if something gets hot, there's no reason why they can't do this. It's just, in my theory, as I've said on your show before, it's they have their business model, they have the way it works, and they're content to let it just dive bomb into the ground over the next decade or so, because screw it, they've already kind of resigned themselves to being blockbuster video, and so why not? As Feisty said, there's no competition, so they don't have to change. And I think a lot of people, and this was reinforced at San Diego, they are resigned to their fate. They believe that this business is niche. It's going to be tiny. One day it'll all be digital, and things will be crappy. And, let's just enjoy it while it lasts. Let's get drunk this con, because, in 10 years there will just be movies, there won't be comics. So screw it. That's the mentality of a lot of people. And that mentality is cancer, far more than, whatever SJWs, far more than whatever there aren't alt-right comics, but whatever.
Nazi comic creators. Nazi comic creators.
Yeah. Far more than any of those guys. I mean, this is why I wish you could take all the battles. I listen to some of the lives. I don't listen to very much, but I listen to the live stream of a bunch of the Comic Gate founding fathers.
Oh, you mean the almighty High Council? That is
the High Council. That's right.
That's the douchiest thing ever. It's like, we did it as a joke, but you still did it. It's like, hey, here's a penis on your shoulder, but you still put your penis on your shoulder.
There's Douglas Ernst, some of those guys. There's good guys in there. It's just like, I mean, come on. No matter what fight you're having right now, just whatever your argument is, can you please just agree on don't just produce content, get it out there
on a regular basis, not just
on a regular basis.
Because here's the thing, like because I kind of like ripped into that Flying Sparks as earlier, and somebody in the handsome one, THO, he popped up. He's like, hey, can you give Blue Mama some love? And I'm like, I just ripped into this comic, like, and here's the thing, I have a thing against crowdfunding for books or just like single issues. Like, if it's a one shot, that's one thing. But it's like issue 1 of God knows how many. It could be 4 issues, 5 issues, whatever. Because there's no guarantee that first issue will deliver. And if the first issue does, let's say everything goes well, you're talking how many months in between? Like, okay, the first issue gets crowdfunded. Okay, it hits its goal within a month. So that's a month. Then another month for it to be printed, another month for it to be illustrated, printed, and everything like that. So it's like 30 pages every, 6 months? When's your next? When's the crowdfunding for book 2 or book 3 or book 4? You keep going back to the well. Now, if you were to say this is a crowdfunding for the first 5 issues of this series, it's a 5-issue series. Here's a crowdfunding for each individual book. They'll be released to you and be shipped to you as soon as they come out. I know that might be a little awkward, but sure. At least that's something. At least like, okay, at least it's all been paid for. The artist is going to do all 5 issues in a row. Okay, there you go. I could, you know what, I could back that. Or if it's an original graphic novel, but I can't see myself saying, okay, I'll pay for issue 1 of, it's like paying for, 5 minutes of story or 15 minutes of story and then make another 6 months. I can't do that. And, and especially if it's not complete, if it's not like a one shot, if it's like kind of a Super Sons kind of deal, or not Super Sons, like the old World's Finest, where like the one shot, like here's Superman laying on the ground and here's some fireworks about to be lit near his ear or something, like crazy, stupid stuff like that. It's not. It's going to be, because everything's got to be set up, world building, and then you have to wait to the second issue something actually happens, because it seems to be common comics these days.
Yeah, no, I think, I mean, it's it's an interesting model. It's an interesting experiment. It's making some money right now. There's some novelty to it. It's fine, but I desperately want, and I would offer the help for free. Nobody will take me up on it. I haven't reached out to these people, but I would happily, no matter if it's the most social justice book in the social world, or if it's Ethan's book. I would invest money. I would invest time to move it into something that's a more regular, sustainable business. Because the Indiegogo stuff is just not, it's not sustainable the way it is. It's an interesting model. People are making money. People are very quick to point out, look at all the money it makes. Great, it is making money. That's fine. But you got to move it from a momentary thing into a consistent thing. And there are tools to do it. I mean, there's Stripe, which is a subscription-based payment service that would absolutely work for a lot of these companies that could sign up and take orders from there. You need to start looking at comics and distribution. Well, sorry, not distribution, but the payment in the same way that software that is subscription for a service works, and apply those models. And if you do that, you've got a lot of tools, a lot of applications, a lot of services that can be plugged in immediately. I mentioned Stripe. Stripe is a great service. It's easy to plug in. It's free. You don't have to be a genius to do it. And you can start offering subscription-based content through that. It's not perfect. You still have to figure out the distribution side. But that's the kind of model that people need to be going toward. And that's something that I've been working on with some deals from, some comics from Asia, and that I hope to I'm trying a bunch of experiments, and I'm putting my own money into it to figure out other ways to get comics into the hands of people. And it's funny, Alterna is here. I should be working with them more. I'm desperate to find other models. They won't all work, but we got to start trying some other things, because I alluded to it earlier. Our biggest enemy, consistent enemy across all the different ideologies and methods, is it's this feeling that comics are doomed, that they are going to be small time, they are going to be niche, there's nothing we can do about it. I use the analogy, it's Blockbuster Video. I must have heard that 100 times from publishers. I've got some friends at Marvel and DC. I had some great drinks, and everybody got pretty sloppy on Friday night, and out came the truth, which was, yeah, it's we're basically trying to squeeze the last dollar out of this before it just kind of flips to a nothing business. And that's such a defeatist, painful attitude to hear. And one, it's never going to fully happen. There are people who want comics and want entertainment. It will survive, but to squander this amazing opportunity of incredible movies and things that are out there, and all this attention toward comic properties, and an audience that is desperately in the mood for new content, and to squander that by just kind of wandering around and assuming that it's all fucked is it's pathetic. It's pathetic to me as a shop owner, but it's pathetic to the industry. It doesn't have to be this way. And so that kind of may explain a lot of my attitude lately on Twitter of just, come on, we're fighting the wrong dumb fights.
We are, and that's the biggest fucking problem, because we got these people coming out, like when there's a guy, I read an article. It was a blog post. It was like the whole gatekeeping thing. And I'm like, that works for corporations, but if you are, Cyberfrog LLC or whatever, like you're just Ethan and maybe three other people that and you can trust. Well, guess what? You don't have to worry about gatekeeping. If it's just you running your own business, it's pointless. Like for corporations, it's too little, too late. They're in there, they're doing their thing, whatever. But these, like, focusing on that instead of focusing on getting more content out there, getting it out there to people, like. Maybe that Department of Justice investigation that they started against Diamond, and then Marvel and DC like, hey, let's cut this out. They should bring that back up. We should, yes, people will hurt. Those that cannot adapt will die, but those who come out of it will be stronger for it. Because this system of having Diamond who lie, right? I mean, they've lied to you.
Diamond is well aware. I mean, they're the only game in town. They know it. You go to these events that they host, and it's very. I mean, if you haven't experienced other business, you just look at them as kind of this annoying bitch of a company that screws you at various times. But if you've had experience in tech, or you've had experience in some of these other industries, you see them for who they are, and they're a bully. They're maintaining their monopoly in a lot of cases. And, and it's not that they're necessarily evil people. They're doing what they are allowed legally to do. And I mean, they know
as a private company that they can do it. They have no, like what's okay by their morals or what's not okay by their morals. Because if I'm not mistaken, was reading up on this, the birth issue of Miracle Man, the one where Liz Moran gives birth, other distributors, they put it out. But Diamond's like, no, that's offensive, and they refuse to put it out, even though it's just what childbirth looks like. So it's like, it's nothing. It isn't like, ooh, it's sexual. No, it's just like very generic looking. It's like anatomy book, and it has a warning at the book. So if you don't want to, like I'm pretty sure they had bags and boards all the way back then. So if it's a shop owner, like, well, I want to carry the book, but I don't want, like, there's nothing graphic on the cover. Just bag and board it. I mean, it might cost what, extra 15 cents for the bag and board or whatever it breaks down to.
Right.
But
it's nothing. Yeah, no, and they make odd decisions. I mean, they'll do that, but then you got a penis in magic order, and nobody seems to notice or care about that. I mean, it's just random, and it's a company that's doing what they're doing, and they're doing it primarily because they know, especially in today's day and age, nobody's going to come up and try and replicate Diamond. It would be the dumbest thing it would be a gigantic money sinkhole for somebody to come up and try and compete the way that Diamond competes. Because the one part that is true is that distribution model, that type of way of providing content is archaic. Why would you replicate that? That's stupid. But it doesn't mean that there's not a distribution problem. It doesn't mean that companies can't come in and do it. And the baffling part is, given all the attention that comics have right now, and given that there is a natural interest, the setting could not be more perfect for a company to come in and provide better distribution and better service, and take advantage of print on demand and some other things. There's just a lot of different ways to do it. And I do believe, Amazon's kind of dipping their toe in the water. I don't know. They've got a lot of different things going on. They're going to have some distractions, but you need to. Altera made it. A bunch of people are commenting about it. You need to make it easy enough to have one-click distribution. And even though there are exclusivity agreements, somebody's pointed out very correctly, there are definitely some exclusivity agreements that are in play. Disney absolutely hates the agreement they have with Diamond. I can say that from knowing the people involved. They do it because it's the game in town, and they do it because they're not in the publishing business as a corporation. So they're not going to go in and disrupt things, but they don't. That's one reason why they largely ignore it. So I think there is an opportunity for somebody to come in here and do it better. And And they can. I mean, they absolutely can. Those exclusivities will break down fast if there's viable other options. I believe that both in especially in DC's case, but in Marvel's as well. I know it firsthand from Marvel that there was a hope that digital would be something that could disrupt the publishing business and disrupt the current distribution model and create some other opportunities for printing. And there still remains hope for print on demand as an option, but there's parts of the mechanism that aren't working. The pieces haven't fallen into place. And unfortunately, the people who are holding down the fort, who have real, I would say, moving authority, and that's the managers at Marvel or managers at DC who could make some demands and force some change, they're asleep at the wheel. And they are also they've succumbed to this belief that comics are going to be this, insignificant little thing, and they're little minor celebrities, and they just should write it as long as it lasts. Where
it's that death cult mentality, like I've mentioned before. It's
exactly.
At this point, it's like, oh well, it ain't gonna last. Why don't you just quit? How about this? Just go to a trade school, learn how to be a mechanic or weld or something like that. Because clearly you don't love this industry. Like Peter Samedi, and thanks Peter for jumping in. Which is because he is. Because I thought like he's probably like a little small crew, like a 2-3 man crew, or maybe his wife helps out or family. It's just him running Alterna, choosing the people. Like, he chooses the best people. I've never had any problems with any of the people. Which that's another thing. It's like, well, wow, you're not, people, berating you and treating you decently. That's something to celebrate in this day and age. It is. But doing so much by himself, I was like, I swear he's like superhuman to do everything, because I just couldn't wrap my head around it. And he's like roughly my age, and it makes me feel so lazy and pathetic. It's like, oh my God. But that right there.
And Dunn is the same way. There's others that have that carry it all on their shoulder, but it is so okay. So Alterna just said it. He's saying the same thing I am. I don't know. It's a company, so I don't know if I should say they. What's the proper pronoun to use here? Anyway, the
Zur is saying
Diamond has a monopoly because publishers let them. That is true. It's absolutely true. It's that the publishers that could make a change, and there's 2, maybe 3 with Image, but really 2, and it would only take 1, can force changes. I mean, it would take, and Tom's not the right guy, but I mean, the problem is there's no personality who would do it, but it would take somebody with some balls to go in there and say, look, hey, we're coming out with this movie that we're dropping $300 million to make, and it's got a marketing budget of 150, and we have a track record of billion-dollar films, and we're going to do some heavy comic tie-ins, and we're going to put some serious money to it, and we're going to carry it here, and we want it distributed here, and this is how it's going to be marketed, and this is what you're going to do. And Diamond would crack like that. And I can, bigger distributors and bigger publishers have fallen under Disney basically telling them how they're going to do what they're doing. And you see it with how Netflix even reacted to Disney when that initial deal was struck. Much bigger companies at Diamond just cracked. But the problem is the people running Marvel in the publishing divisions, they don't care enough to put it down. And I've had harsh arguments with editors and people who, a lot of the Twitterverse would absolutely despise me. I sent you a screenshot, would despise me talking to. But, I'm curious, why don't these guys go and put it down? Because if they could build a stronger industry, they would be bigger celebrities. I mean, if it's about money, they would make more money because they make crap money now. If it's about ego, they could be bigger celebrities than they are now. They could have the lines that the movie actors and other people have if they, the world is there for them to take. But unfortunately, use the term, and it's a correct term, the death cult mentality. It's people are satisfied scraping bottom. And why? I mean, they're take advantage of this moment. The door is wide open for you to go through.
It really is. And my biggest thing is like you were talking about, like, tie-in, and like movie tie-ins always been kind of weird unless it's a straight adaptation of like those Marvel super specials from the 80s, like the Blade Runner one. I have the complete stories, not the individual issues that they would eventually release. Because because they had the Blade Runner, which is 2, and then they had Buckaroo Banzai, which is like 2 issues or whatever. And I think the Return of the Jedi was like 3 or 4. But it had like 3 or 4 different artists, so it's almost really weird. Like Al Williamson, and like, so the art really varied. It's a beautiful book, but amazing cover by Bill Sienkiewicz. But those kind of tie-ins make sense to a degree, but also the artistry is like long gone, especially for Marvel. The days when Salvador LaRocca had this great style and like very cartoony, and now it's this kind of he's like Mike Deodato Jr. in a bit, where it's just like almost like using too much photo reference. So tying into the movies coming out, I could see might be a little difficult because you don't want to step on the movie's toes. You don't want it'd be kind of difficult, but something in that vein. But the biggest thing is the price point. These books, one thing like I got into it with somebody about. So everybody mentions how much alternative books cost. So you don't, because in this day and age, that's the first thing. Guess what? It's a comic that won't break the bank, where your and it's like $4, $5 an issue is common. Where even those and there's something I want to talk about as well, but we'll get to that in a bit. But the cost issue as a retailer, do you think lowering, like if let's say tomorrow, Friday, Marvel announces, so DC announces all their books are going to be $9.99, and special issues be like $2.99 or whatever, like that kind of thing. Like Doomsday Clock will go to $2.99. Every other issue, Batman, Superman, everything, $1.99 an issue. Do you think that could reach more people and like increase sales, or would that just them be throwing away money or missing out, or what? What do you think?
So I'll give an answer that people will disagree with on the surface, but it would be them throwing away money right now. And here's why I say that. And by the way, I'm talking short term. Long term, yeah, I mean, lowering the price point would be smart. It would bring more people in. But they have fucked the distribution so much that I mean, here's the wake up call for the comic industry. You have people coming into the shop. I mean, I sold through with Amazing Spider-Man. I sold through with Justice League. I sell through with Batman. And I order good quantities. I mean, pretty hefty quantities of books, I think. And, I'll go to some of the other local shops in the area, and they sell through. Golden Age Collectibles orders just mountains of crap every week, and they sell through. People, I mean, the crazy part is the price point is way too expensive for mass distribution. And yet the fans are so loyal and so interested in this content that they are willing to go into a shop and get fucked by a terrible price point for their comics. And that should tell you something. It should tell the publisher something. If like you have a loyal fan base that wants to consume your crap. And yes, you should lower your prices because then you'll sell more books, and that would be smart to do. But you've got an audience. I mean, you've got an audience you're ripping off, and they come back every month for more. And yes, they complain about it, and that's why you should lower your prices, but you have them. So what are you doing with this? You're putting up with a absolutely archaic 1980s era distribution monopoly that is a joke. You are paying your creators less and less to have lower quality in the comics. You're losing the good creators to Image simply because they want to have an upside where they can distribute their comics somewhere else. That's insanity. That you have this captive, willing audience that is just saying, please don't fuck us too much, please. It's how sad is that? And yet you're still fucking it up. How can you do that? It's absolutely insanity. And it is, you look at the motley crew of weirdos that are increasingly making up these publishers, and they don't care. It is painful to go to the Comic-Con and look at the bars, and if you go down the gas lamp and then a little bit south, west toward where the secondary bars are, because the nice bars are all reserved by the studios. That's where the good people are. So you go a little bit off, And you see these creators and these editors who are clearing, I don't know, 45, 50,000 a year. And they're like, well, we're just happy we're here. We're kind of treated like, semi-celebrities here by a handful of people, and we're making a bit of money, and this is as good as it gets. And, when I get back home, I got to go to IKEA to replace a shelf that fell apart because, and it's like, Jesus, this is
it's like put them out of their misery. It's like this idea of like they're so miserable, and it's like they're going through the motions. It's like, you have so much passion. Peter has so much passion.
Sure.
You guys are the ones that should be in this industry, because for the love of all that's holy, there are so many people. It's like, well, I'm here. I guess I'll just like, wake the fuck up. Do something with your life. If you don't love comics, like, here's the thing, I love comics a little bit too much. Not the fact that I have a ton of them, but there's a passion in me, a fucking fire that wakes up, and I'm afraid it'll burn things like that. That gets that wildly out of control, because I'm like, what the fuck? I look at these comic covers. I'm like, what the fuck is this shit?
No, absolutely.
$5.99 for that garbage, that kind of thing. It's like this, like, and I like lose my mind about it, because there's some people that have that apathy. And that's the thing that scares me. I'll become apathetic towards it as well. I didn't buy comics for a long time after that little blowout with my comic shop the day before Thanksgiving 2008, day that's living infamy or whatever. But I didn't buy, but I still bought comics, but not from a shop regularly. I'd go, online, Midtown Comics. I'd pick up some books from there, Amazon as well, eBay, stuff like that. But I did pick up comics because I still love comics. Didn't quite like getting screwed over paying $100 for Umbrella Academy limited edition slipcase hardcover, it coming in because it was limited. The guy that ran the shop took my copy, said it didn't come in, said he put the $100 I paid for it as a part of like a what do you call it, a tab, putting it out like as and it turns out he had it because I was like, hey, put some music on. So I went to go grab a vinyl record, and in multiple paper bags that he had taped together, I unpeeled it and was like, hey, so no copies came in? Yeah, we were the only person that ordered one, and we got screwed by Diamond. He lied to me. So at that point, I was like, screw this shop and screw these people.
Oh, yeah.
So,
well, unfortunately, I mean, I think the industry breeds dishonest people because it's such a bottom feeder industry at various times that. But here's the funny thing. I ran into, I can go down some names. I ran into a bunch of people at the con, and I want them to do well. I mean, including people who are just hated by a lot of the, whether it's a Comicsgate community or whatever. I mean, I want Mags to have a Tesla and be rich and have lots of comics. And I want that because I want...
we now lost 15 viewers. No, that's not...
just joking. Everybody just left. What the hell?
I'm just joking. I can hear the doors shut real quick. No, you're right. It's like, what?
I want these people to be rich. I want them to come out. I want them to be ballers. I want them to actually be in an industry where they are just making money. I want that to happen. And I say that a little bit facetiously because the reality is, if this industry was spinning off money like this, then you would see more popular, more talented people flood into it. And that is kind of the dirty secret of all this, is that some of the, and I hate the word gatekeeper because it's thrown around too generically, but the people who are controlling who's getting in and who's getting out have an inferiority complex about letting in people who are too good. Because they'll quickly lose their jobs. I mean, the reality is, if a really strong editor, somebody who was a really good talent scout, and somebody else, somebody who really knew the business came into Marvel, and even if they came in at a low level, they could run the show within a year or two, because the talent pool is so crappy. And unfortunately, because the rates are so low and because the whole thing has been suppressed, anyone with strong business talent and tech talent would never go there. It's the, some of I have many friends and I do work in the tech industry, and it's weird to see kind of that contrast. I see artists and graphic artists coming out of school, and they want to be comic artists, and they go to school and they're drawing their portfolio, and their dream is to be comic artists or game artists. And they get to graduate and they look at the jobs. Suddenly they take a look around. They're like, oh, I can go work for Blizzard and make, you know, 40,000 a year. Oh, or I can go to Google over here and they need artists to draw, you know, boring tech manuals, and they're paying, you know, 110 plus benefits and stock. And then it's amazing how quick those dreams of comics and other things disappear. They just, I mean, people go to the money. Anyone who's smart goes to the money. So what's left is the people who couldn't make it at those bigger jobs. They go into comics, they get the lower salaries. And then, you know, there are certainly some people there who have passion, but Joe Mad, some of the others who have been in the industry for a while and get a bit of a name for themselves. Yeah, they gravitate toward where the money is. Anyone smart does. And I think we've talked about it before, you've got to get more money into the industry, but you've got to get people who are determined and have fire and want to build this up to be big, because it can be big. And that's where I say, I want Kelly Thompson, I want Mags, I want Tamara Bonvillain. I don't know, I can go down the long list of people that you know, the Twitterverse hates, and say, I want them to be rich. I want them to have six-figure salaries. I want them to get commissions. I want them to have Teslas. I want them to have nice houses. I want them to be true celebrities at these shows, because that's what comics should be. But you know, as long as everybody's racing to the bottom, as long as people are fighting to kind of keep it at a lower level, then yeah, we're going to have crap.
It's that communism aspect of, you know, like the whole, well, you know, if I can't be rich, then nobody should be rich, or, you know, like let's do it. It's
Yeah,
this
no,
idea.
exactly.
And it's kind of scary to see this happen, because I should have known something was up with Marvel when John Romita Jr. left. I know the Kuberts, you know, like Joe Kubert had, you know, he was a DC dude, Sergeant Rock, you know, Unknown Soldier, all that stuff. But see, John Romita Jr. jumped ship. I should have known something was up, because, you know, the rates, and like Sean Gordon Murphy said on Twitter a while back that, you know, Marvel couldn't afford them.
Yeah.
I know some people, like, they'll show up like, I don't know, you know, like Dan Panosian, amazing, old school artist. Did book slots. I recommend it. It's really good comic. Pick it off, you know, at your local comic shop. You can order it. If they can't order it, or if they don't have it, Amazon, just pick it up. Good comic. But he was talking about how he's going to be doing something at Marvel, but it's probably going to be a limited engagement. He couldn't say what it was, when it was, whatever like that, you know, whatever, NDAs and all that. But it's this, like, it's always going to be limited engagement. It's like, and he was saying how he should be, like, I'm like, dude, he's a good artist. He should be in charge. Like, he used to have like people like John Romita Sr. in charge of the art. You had these, you know, like, people know what they're doing, like the art directors, like, hey, that's off model, that's wrong, this is wrong. And that's gone. That old way of actually having like standards, not necessarily like a standards of practices, or, you know, kind of a QA, but close enough to it. People that knew what was BS and what wasn't, what was right for the characters and what isn't. And there's always going to be people, like the idea of, like, you could be a hotshot artist and oh, you think you have something over us? You can always be fired. We get somebody from the third world, pay him cheaper, and that's basically what Marvel does. Dynamite does that to a degree too. It's like pretty much all their comics have art from people that, I mean, to say they're bottom of the barrel, I mean, it's really bottom of the barrel. It's like the can that's dented without a label on it. It's like down at the bottom. It's like, I guess it's food. It may not be what you want, might not be what you expect. It's like beautiful cover usually. And then the interior is like, oh God, it's like, what is this?
No, it's absolutely true. I think it's funny, because I think if you put more money into things, and make no mistake about it, Marvel has money, Disney has money. It's not that they're, you know, they've got such a tiny budget, and Disney's got them on a tight leash. That's not true. Yes, Disney is notoriously cheap, but Disney also is notoriously sticklers for quality and other things. I mean, try and go down to Disney Studios and produce some work, Frozen that's off artist chart. It will never see the light of day. They're maniacal about that kind of stuff. So it's not that, you know, Disney knows what quality is. Marvel knows what quality is. There is budget for more of this stuff. There just has to be a desire to want to go and do something great. And I think there's a lot of good references to the tech community you can look at. You have companies who are inventing just dumb tech that go down to the valley and raise, get $100 million valuation on something stupid. And they do it because they've got fire and they're putting it together a big vision and they're getting a dream out there. So that's what needs to happen. That's what needs to happen in comics is people need to shoot big. I mean, yeah, the money will come, but why not put an annual out that is done by Art Adams? I mean, cover to cover, all pages by him. He's going to want a lot of money, and it will take forever because he is who he is. But that comic is going to be your best-selling comic of the year. I mean, it's a safe bet because he's such a name and people care. So I mean, you just start making these bets and start, going to your publisher and saying, I think the movies are big, but I have a dream. I have a dream where comics are bigger than the movies. Just try. I mean, nothing good comes from saying, well, I'm just going to try and do the best I can, and it won't, will be 1/100th of a movie. I mean, a quote from the con was, we're never going to be more than 1/100th of the movie business. So, I'm like, oh, fuck you. Really? I mean, come on.
That defeatist attitude, like those kind of people, like, the idea of tar and feathering, I know how horrifying it is, but you know what? Some of those people need to be like tarred, or at least waterboarded, or attempted, not necessarily waterboarded, maybe dunked underwater like a forced baptism, just drown their ass a bit, like wake them up. Because right, this idea of like, well, what's the point of trying? It's like you need somebody that's like, it's like telling somebody that has no hands or feet that like whatever. Oh, you can do this. Like,
get out of comics. I mean, seriously, those people. And this is where, I mean, for Richard or Ethan or any of those, just turn your fire for a week to these assholes who are just phoning it in and not even trying. Turn your hatred toward those people who are just save out on whatever, the outrage of how big Captain Marvel's breasts are just for 1 week, and go at these dickheads who are just coming in and stealing the business's money and doing nothing and just are expecting it to die one day. Kill off those people. And this is why, I mean, for those of you who followed me and seen me for a while, I got a lot of, when I engaged with Aubrey, whatever his last name is. Sitterson. Yeah. I mean, people like that. I mean, yes, I always talk to these people. I want to know what's going on in their head. And I'm trying to make a determination. Are they ideologues but want to build a big business? Or are they just here to just kind of phone it in until eventually the money's gone? Because I can work with ideologues that I disagree with 100%, but want to build a big business all day long. I can't work with somebody who just expects it all to die tomorrow. That person is fucked. So that's what we need more. We need that push for a while. The people who do not give a shit, they've got to go. And that's that's my rant on that.
That's the thing. Like, you got these people, like, when they were going after the whole milkshake thing, which I knew that was bullshit. I'm like, go after Axel Alonso, go after Joe Quesada. Joe Quesada is Axel's boss, even though he's not in the day-to-day deal. If you're poor quality, you don't go after the random help. These people who are only there because, well, they applied for the job. Or they picked them. I mean, who hell knows? Like the Heather Antoses and the like. Which I have no ill will against these people. I have no contact with them. I had no interest in contacting them. It's like, well, they said something horrible. What? Yeah. Why do you give a shit? It's like, why don't follow them? It's don't look. There's nobody forcing you with a gun to your head. Oh, this creator, this editor, this like, oh wow, they're about getting milkshakes instead of doing their job. How about you look at Tom Brevoort? How about you look at Axel Alonso? How about you look at Joe Quesada? Go after those guys. Don't go. It's like yelling at somebody like a telemarketer, not the telemarketer's boss or something, or going after like a low rung person. Truly is low hanging fruit. And if you want things to change, you have to get them bigger. And I'm pretty like Tom Brevoort on Twitter was like, the '90s are gone, they're never coming back. I'm like, yeah, '90s kind of sucked in some regards, the variant covers, but hell, they're doing that again. You have to order 105 copies of Fantastic Four #1 to get this variant, this bullshit. And this right here are these people that, I only buy it for the covers. I want to throw people like that out of a moving vehicle. Like, it's you people are like, well, that's their right to have that opinion, Larry, and they want to buy that book. But for people like that. They're not like, comic isn't just a cover. At that point, just buy the fucking poster, print out a high quality image. Somebody put a scan in. It's like those art germ covers. I don't care for the story, but the cover's real nice. Like that kind of thing. It's like, why people? Like if art germ, like I got to the point now, like as much as I love J. Scott Campbell, especially for his Danger Girl work and these other people that do mainly just covers.
Sure.
At this point, it was like, oh, you don't want to do interior work because it doesn't pay you enough? Get the fuck out. Get out. There's the door. I don't want you around no more. Well, I still do covers. Just do posters. Get the fuck out. Have nothing to do with the comics. Unless you're drawing the interiors, get the fuck out.
Well, we've got to solve that problem. I mean, people, you know, I think some publishers, Marvel, well, I don't know. I mean, I think people are wise. Readers are wise at this point to the fact that, you know, what's in the cover is not what's in the book. So, I mean, you can't con people by putting an Alex Ross cover on it and then having just dog shit inside the comic. You know, people are going to flip it open. They're going to see. You're fooling nobody. There's zero. I don't know. Maybe other shops are having a different experience, but I have nobody who comes in and it's like, I've got to buy this for the cover, and they just, you know, they're willing to put down $5 for just a cover. That doesn't exist anymore. They said they'll buy the poster. They'll go online. It's pretty popular up here that people will take they'll take screenshots or they'll get the art digitally and just take it down to their local, you know, Walgreens or FedEx shop and just print themselves out a big poster. I mean, it's oh, that day is over. Nobody's taking just that comic for just the cover.
There's two guys at my shop. One's a lawyer, one's a cop, and they both buy variant covers. So I don't know that maybe, you know, like I don't know what that says about them. The lawyer, he's like 6'4", 6'5". He looks like Herman Munster, and he brings his kids in. His kids look like two Pugsley Adams clones. It's the weirdest thing. Like it seems like he's always in there. Like he'll come in right after I come in. It's like he's waiting for like making sure it didn't bomb or something in the comic shop. He's like, I'll let him go in first and make sure it doesn't blow up. But it's so weird. It's like, these people, there are people that still do. But you're right. It's extremely rare at the point now where those that do it, it's like, yeah, that's a pretty image, but what does it tell me about the story? I like the old school covers that actually tell me something about the story or have something going on. But that's a whole visual design sense. I think that's lost because a lot of these people go art school. They're taught how, you know, I think there's SCAD down in Savannah teaches, you know, people how to draw and how to do comics. They have like comic courses, just like the Kubert School. I think the Kubert School would be better, but the SCAD, it's like these. They could teach you how to do comics, but it's so dry and so generic. Like the Luna Brothers came out of that. They did that Sword series, and they did that Spider-Woman book with Brian Reed and Bendis, and they did that Girls series and that Ultra, which is like Six in the City with superheroes. Like these kind of, you know, their artwork. I used to be a fan of it, and I'm like, what the fuck am I doing? This is like this looks like coloring book art. Like I went from liking it to hating. Like one day I woke up because I started reading more like old Nexus comics and American Flag and what's the other one? John Sable. And so the old like good art, and not just like reading. Like, this is trash. I'm done. Like, but these like those. I'm not saying all books like that, but there's no design sense. There's no flair in these comics because I think a lot of that stuff is they'll bring the variants back, but won't bring back that kind of the over the top covers and the like certain things like are outlawed, like almost like no speed lines and no this, no that. Like, you know, this idea of like everything from the 90s is horrible. And
it's so the perspective, and I don't know if there's any Feisty was in the chat for a while. I don't know if there's other retailers that are in the chat or hearing this. I'd be curious again of what other people's experiences are. I keep a pretty good network of people, but what, you know, the general mentality, you try and figure out, you know, what is the general feeling of the customers who are coming in. And right now, the general feeling to Marvel is that they are, you know, they're putting out books. It's kind of a con. Everybody is wise to the idea that Marvel puts out a brand new #1 for a, you know, premier team. And the artist is if it's half decent or actually a good name artist, will only be on it for 3 to 6 issues max, and then they're going to replace by somebody lower. And the promise is that the good artist will come back after, you know, a little breather, but they never do. So it's this feeling of Marvel is kind of degenerated down to almost a Netflix model where you get an arc with an artist and a creative team you like, and then you have to kind of abandon it because the people go away, and maybe they're on something else, maybe not, but increasingly not. The feeling on DC is that there's a little bit more care put to the books, but that it's also a lot more random. That it's hard to tell, who's a creative team going to be on a particular book. You don't know, and even though Justice League sells very well, there is a little bit of there's grumbling about, you've had 3 artists now in 5 issues. So what's going on exactly?
Well, that's another thing I want to mention. The New Age of Heroes, they're already canceled Immortal Men, which is hilarious. That's the first book to get canceled, the Immortal Men.
Well, and 2 more too, right? Or that may not be public knowledge.
They're all foregone conclusions because pretty much every one of them is like 20,000 under. Like I think Damage is like 17,000 something. It's all really bad, and it's like it doesn't help none that these. Am I correct? And like when the book comes out, it's usually they already have the 3rd issue in. Like working on, right? Usually like that, right? It's like so issue 1 comes out, they're already on issue 3 roughly. That's usually should be about that, right?
At least. I mean, there's a couple. It depends on the mentality of the publishers, but yeah, I mean, general rule of thumb, it's issue 3 or issue 4. Yeah.
So they already knew by the time the change for John Romita Jr. leaving, for Tony Daniel leaving, for all these people leaving, they didn't even really know the sales for the issues, right? Like unless there's for the first 2 issues, like with the because there's usually a drop. Very rarely the 2nd issue sells more than the first. So it's just the way it goes.
There's ways to gauge pre-interest. I mean, you have the orders for the first, those come late, but you do, you send advanced copies out, you do some polling, you do, there's a communication method with the shops that very generally speaking, the publisher knows, kind of, they can do some estimates of what the orders are going to be like, even, first issue in before you have true order numbers in. And which means that in terms of the New Age of Heroes stuff, I don't know what DC's original thought process was. I've heard that their process was that they're going to dip the toe in the water and kind of take a Marvel approach to it, which was you put some marquee creators on it, you get the characters designed, you get the storyline going for the first arc, and then you sub out to cheaper artists. That is what I've heard the plan was all along. Before even the first issue was solicited. It was never their intent that these creators were going to stay on long term. And people are rejecting it rather quickly. You can make a business selling. I mean, one of the big misconceptions that I hear on a lot of YouTube channels and other things is, look how shitty the industry is. This comic's only selling 20,000 copies. I mean, yeah, that's not good, but you can make a business out of that. The only problem with that is if there's no upward momentum. If all the comics are on a downward arc, if 20,000 is the highest they ever get and none of them ever grow or pick up readership, and if your core books that are in the 50, 75, 100 and higher range stop hitting that range, and that's the problem we have in comics now. It's not that comic. I mean, nobody thinks that Iceman is going to get more than 20,000 orders. And nobody does, but it doesn't mean you don't publish Iceman. There's still a market for that. You can still put something out, protect the IP and everything else, and have some sales. It can still be profitable. It's these math things that I've seen people do of like, oh look, see, they're losing money on every issue. I got into this with I forget the guy's name. He does the selfie videos all the time, but you can be profitable off of those low numbers, as long as you have other factors in the business. You have a mass that's over 40 to 50K. You have event issues or other things that are carrying the weight. And if the 20,000 copy issues are serving a purpose, meaning they're coming out and they're either boosting other titles or they've got longevity in other mediums that they can keep. Yeah, Edwin. Sorry, I love Edwin, by the way. But you can make a business out of that. The problem is they're all like that, or they're all trending to that, and that world is screwed. And so then now you see all the gimmicks and the cons, and you see why DC is doing what they're doing. But it is why Image has I think a good reputation in the shop, and it's because you come in. There's no confusion of what you're getting. If you're buying Wicked and the Divine, you know what you are getting with that comic. You know the creative team you're getting. It does not appeal to everyone, and it knows it, and it doesn't try to pretend that it's going to appeal to audiences it doesn't appeal to. You know, same thing with Saga, same thing with Walking Dead. Kirkman and a lot of the experiments he's doing now with Die 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 and some of the other titles he's putting out. That business model is predictable. You know what's going to happen month after month. If you're a retailer, you typically like those issues because you can count on what they're going to do. They don't wildly fluctuate. And you know, the only downside is they take weird breaks at different times. So as a comic shop owner, it's hard for me to predict exactly what all of Image is going to do. But from a publishing perspective, it's a very safe, predictable model for them, and it's one that they gain trust with the fans on. Somebody said we need more titles in the 100K range. Yeah, I mean that would be one way to do it. That'd be a good way to do it. Yeah, ideally more than that. Another way to do it is that you have one of two factors. Either you have comics that are slowly increasing, meaning they're 20,000 this month, but maybe they're 21,000, 22,000. You see a slow trend line up. You don't see that anywhere, but that's what you want.
Like Walking Dead. Like Walking Dead did that from
actually, yeah. Walking Dead is a perfect example. Walking Dead definitely did. But the big two need some titles that are going up, not down. And it is possible. It's not a foregone conclusion they all go down, although they seem to have accepted that. Or you see some predictability, meaning long while back, you had Wolverine, the solo title. And it was trending down in sales. And they brought in Mark Miller, and he did this storyline called Enemy of the State with JR.
Mm-hmm.
And that storyline, Marvel marketed. We got a superstar artist, we got a superstar writer, and Wolverine's going to kill the fuck out of some people. So you got to buy it. And it doubled. I mean, I'll have to go and look on Comic-Con or one of these sites to see exactly what it is. It's been a while. But at least my sales doubled. As a reseller, I ordered twice the amount. And you see, Marvel knows it. And so if the business can be predictable like that, that's a healthy business. The problem is right now, take a look at Marvel's line or DC's line and name any example where there is a storyline happening in a title without a reboot or a relaunch or anything else, and it's going to double sales. And there isn't one. There's nothing that they currently produce that has that kind of effect. And that is an unhealthy business.
Yeah, that's one of those problems, like with the business as itself. Like you're saying, like, you know, it'd be nice to see, like, you know, 200,000, 300,000 being the common thing, like multiple titles. Like
Sure.
It'd be great to see like a dozen titles, like the top 12, whatever sales would be, like each of them like multiple hundreds of thousands copies sold. And it's crazy. Like people are like, oh, that's not possible. That right there, that's defeat. That's defeat talking.
Yep.
And it could honestly be more than that. Then, like, but the problem with it is these naysayers, the defeatists, those are beaten down by, oh, it's a dead model. I'm in a dying medium. I'm just going to write it until I can't write. Like, I was like that when I worked security. I worked security for over a decade. And I know, like, well, they can't replace me with a robot. They could try to replace me with somebody cheaper, but you can't really play any. Like, you had to pay them for free. You pay them nothing and work for free. But when it comes to stuff like comics, I think people get in, and especially working for a corporation like Marvel or DC, especially Marvel. Oh, I'm working on Spider-Man and the X-Men, and that wears off, and they're like, well, I'm just in it for, you know, just to be in it until I can't be, like, maybe segue into something else. And that's the biggest thing. Like, a lot of people are there not because of they love the comics, they love the medium. Like, you give me a photocopier, a piece of paper, a pen, and a stapler and scissors, and I'll make you a damn comic book. It won't be the prettiest thing ever, but I'll make you a comic book. Sure. I'll make it in no matter what form, like whether, you know, and that right there is a love for the medium, not just, oh, well, I love Spider-Man. That's the only thing I care about. Like Spider-Man, the action figure, Spider-Man, the stuffed doll, Spider-Man, the comics, and it's this, that, like, they have love for a single character, but I love the medium in general. And I'm like, there's plenty of room for stuff like Love and Rockets or Spider-Man, Superman. You know, like there's books I will never read. I have no interest in reading. Why don't you give it a shot? It's like I know a dog turd stinks. I'm not gonna go and go over there and sniff it. I don't have to do that. It's like that kind of thing.
Sure.
It just ain't for me. I know what I like, and I like. Let me stick in my bubble. Damn it.
Well, I mean, so look at. There's a couple good examples. I mean, you look at Justice League, and Snyder today comes out and says, "I'm on this title for 50 issues." Now he's got to win some credibility there, but he's got some. I mean, people, he's done long runs on comics. He shows some enthusiasm, so he tells his audience, "I'm going to be on this for 50 issues. Not every 5th issue, I'm going to do a villain storyline, but I'm in this for the long run." That's good. That helps me as a reseller, as a comics community. That helps me because it tells the fans, if you like what I'm putting out here, I'm going to be here. I'm going to stay with you. I'm not going to leave you. I'm not going to go have an affair with some dumb publisher. I'm with you. And so people will buy into that run. And if you look at what Marvel does, there's really no certainty. And in fact, I like to throw out these names that people typically don't like. Nick Spencer has given interviews that say, "I'm on Spider-Man for as long as they'll let me, but I'm on Spider-Man for at least 100 issues." Now, he's got credibility problems where, that may or may not be true. But when he says that, good. Keep saying stuff like that. And he's got Otley and now Ramos, who's going to, I guess, trade arcs. So, hey, you want to get a consistently top-selling book? I mean, it's Spider-Man that helps, but if you do 6 issues with Otley, you do 6 issues with Ramos, you go back and you do 6 issues with Otley again. You only need to do that, 3 times, and fans will believe, and they will stay with you, and they will buy in, and they will keep going, and that is success. But you look at a lot of the approach, certainly with Marvel, and you see it a lot with DC. Unfortunately, there's no guarantees of anything. It's like, well, here's a storyline, and it may or may not matter. Probably doesn't. It's just wacky little adventures, and who gives a fuck? And that's cancer to the industry. They're saying in the chat, it's defeatism in comics. It's telling your readers directly, this shit doesn't matter. If you miss this issue, then it doesn't really care. I mean,
it's the Last Jedi. Nothing matters.
Yeah, whatever. Shit will happen. It's fine. And it's not.
We all gotta die sometime. Yeah, this kind of shit.
It's not death in comics. It's not either. It's just telling your audience, buy it or don't. You're in for a wacky adventure, and it's why. Again, I mean, I've noticed over time that what I like as a fan and what I like as a reseller is not always the same thing. I think we've talked about before. Mark Miller, the way he writes is very polarizing, it seems, in the community, and there's a disregard suddenly for what comes after and everything else. But you put him on a book, it sells well in the shop, because it is a message to fans that what he puts out there is going to stick. It's going to have some lasting impact. You may not like it, but you don't want to miss it. Like it or not, you may not like the content, but it's going to be important to the title and the character until somebody comes along and retcons it out. And that's what gets people to buy, and that's what we need. And so I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're Snyder. I don't care if you're Heather Antos. I don't care what person you are. Put out comics that people give a shit, and tell your readers that it matters and they want to buy. And if they miss it, they're missing out. And be proud of what you're creating. Don't spend your time on Twitter dicking around with trying to troll the Comicsgate audience. If you think those people are nonsense, let them be nonsense. Who gives a fuck about them? I mean, it's this idea of the creator who treats the fan bad. If you're a creator, the most dismissive possible way to treat the fans is to just ignore them and not talk to them and block them. I mean, I think what Al Ewing does with his Twitter is garbage. With how he treats the fans, but that's probably healthier for him than like the Ron Mars who comes on and just shits on the fans every day. Why are you doing that? What a waste of your time. Be a celebrity, make huge comics, enjoy the fact that you're in a place that other people would kill for. Because there's the one truthful thing about Twitter and comics in general is people want to be in comics. They want to, you see this passion from the fans. So if you've made it, pat yourself on the back. You're awesome. Good for you. Just stop slumming it with people that you hate. Coming in to troll them is just, what the fuck's wrong with you?
Exactly. It's like, you don't see this anywhere else. You don't see the people of Stranger Things. You don't see the Duffer Brothers going, yeah, this doesn't matter. We can't fucking stand you. We're doing this anyway. You know, if you support like this whole, if you support this, don't buy my book. Here's the thing. Like I've said before in this chat, our little chat here, I'm not a fan of Ethan or Richard, really. I mean, I don't like the way they do things. You know, it's like they're not my kind of people. Would I spit on them? Not really, no. Well, that's considered assault, so I wouldn't do that. But no, it's like, I'll take a bit to answer that. But no, I'm saying, it's like, I'm not going to be like, if you support them, don't you support me? I'm like, no, give me your money. I don't care. It's like, hey, free market, baby. Like, but this idea of like, love what you do. Love what you do.
No, and I'm glad. I'm legitimately. I've said it before. I'm glad. I'm happy. I'm proud. I'm thankful that people gave this money to Ethan for his book. That's good. It shows passion, shows interest. Good for you. Keep going. The way that you go and get the money. I mean, it's whatever. Everybody has their tactics. I think if it's a business strategy, I think it's not the best business strategy to go for adversarial, but I can't argue with it because he's making money off it. So good for him. It wouldn't work for me personally, but go nuts. The crazier people in all this are the ones who have the freelance job. They made it to Marvel. They made it to DC. They made it to the big publisher. They have people who show up at cons and fawn all over them and all the rest. Stick to your fans. Don't troll them because you're bored. If you're bored, go make a comic. Go promote your stuff. Go hype your work so you can be an even bigger celebrity and ignore the bottom feeders even more. You know, go do your thing. Just stop. Just stop with this nonsense. It's just, and you see it in the world. I mean, there are extremes on both sides, and there's a moderate centrist attitude, and the moderates are getting squeezed from both sides because it becomes an us versus them. You've got to pick one side or the other, and none of that. That's just that benefits the extreme. It doesn't benefit you personally. It doesn't benefit the industry. It doesn't help anything. And we need more comics. I've said before, I would love it to have a healthy audience coming in, buying Iceman, buying Squirrel Girl, buying, whatever the fuck wasp it is now. I don't know what the pronoun is anymore. I would love people coming to buy those comics, and Marvel reaching out and trying to get that audience. Good for you. Please keep doing it. Try it, but don't do it at the cost of the other books, and don't act like douchebags to your fans who want to show up and buy an Avengers comic that doesn't suck. I mean, we need all these pieces of content out there. So
we really do, because that's the thing. Like, the biggest thing is the price point for me for a lot of these projects and a lot of the books coming out now. Like, I read the first issue of the Spencer Ottley Amazing Spider-Man. I loved it. The price I can't deal with because it's every book that comes out every 2 weeks. That's $8 a month at least. Like, for that, I mean, granted, they are packing, like for that first issue, and from what my friend Matt told me, and he misses you, Perch. He's like, man, I see how you are. You want Perch to yourself.
Oh no.
No, he's good. He's like, his schedule, like, kind of a little headed futz with it or something to make it work. No worries, but he sends us love. Bro love. But no, it's the idea of every book coming out every 2 weeks at $1.99. That's I could easily afford that. That's no problem. But $4 each, that's a little too much, man. Same thing with the with Justice League. I read the first 4 issues and I'm tapped out, man. It's like too dense, too much. I understand you want it big, and it's like Snyder saying, "Oh, I'm out to Grant Morrison." I'm like, I can't. My brain, I'm trying to follow along what's going on. I just can't. It's just I can't. Joker with a chainsaw inside Martian Manhunter's bloodstream with Hawk Girl and her metal wings are just basically like Angel. I'm
No,
gonna go to Hawkman. I'm gonna go to Hawkman now. Like, I could deal with Hawk Gods destroying the Earth and Kryptonian Kartar Hall. I could deal with that. I could deal with that. Just League's maybe in trade will read better because it's like too much, man.
No, it's. I mean, I think you need a little bit of everything. You need comics that have a certain style. I'm glad Snyder's out there just shooting for the moon every issue. It is. I mean, you do have to. It's not turn off your brain. You just have to be willing to like, okay, I have no idea like Morrison. I have no idea what the fuck is going on here, but all right, whatever. Having a good time. I think, that content is fine. The price point, yeah, as we talked about, it's too high. It is. People are coming in and buying it, even though the price point is high, and that's why I say people love this industry. They love comics. They love the different creators. They love the different content. Twitter would have you believe that there's only two types of content people will like, either, giant tits or social justice. And no, the reality is there's a lot. I think the interest is there. The price point needs to come down so you can encourage more people into the fold, and you can get people buying more, and you can do it in a smart way. You've got to investigate some other mediums for distribution. You've got to investigate, some other ways to get comics, and you have to build up trust with your fans. You have to build up trust that if they're going to try something, that it's going to be. And so, by the way, the question. No, I wasn't talking about Zurcher necessarily. I think there's a lot of pros that do this, that take pot shots. I know Zurcher does. I think Mars does. I think various people do. I've had some conversations off and on with some of these people on DMs. And it's funny because they never really realize what they're doing. They're trying to make a funny, and okay, I get it. For a lot of people, Twitter isn't about conversation. It's about kind of, telling jokes and getting a reaction. It's not about starting a dialogue at all. So if you think about it from that mentality, then you start to understand better why these people do what they do. They're trying to dunk on people and say something kind of controversial and get, some action going. And in fact, I was hanging out with a pro down in San Diego, and they're like, hey, hang on for a second. And then he posted something goofy that I'm like, why are you posting that? It's just being a dick. And it's like, no, watch what happens. And he puts the phone away, and we wander around for a while. He takes the phone out. I was like, I got 200 notifications. And it's like, I mean, it's just sport. They're not serious about what they're doing. They're just seeing what kind of reaction they get because they're bored. And it's not like those of us who are on Twitter who are like trying to have a conversation or, trying to do something more meaningful. These are people who are just curious what kind of reaction they'll get if they say, oh, fans are gay. Or just something, obviously I wouldn't say that because that would go against the ideology. But if you think about it that way, then yeah,
I have a theory. Was this pro a writer?
Yes, it was actually.
Here's a theory. Comic writers are the bane of this. If they're a writer artist, like they actually can write and draw their own work, they're not the problem. Writers only, because usually they're frustrated artists. They get bored way too quickly. You don't see too many, like Zurcher, he said previously that he has mental issues, health issues, like, that kind of thing. So it's like, some of it seems like outreach. He's, like something he posted something. I'm like, this is depressing. Like somebody brought it up to my attention. Like, Jesus, I'm like, just leave the dude alone. Just mute him. Just go ahead and mute him so you don't have to see your rants or this, that. Just let him suffer in peace. Like, that's the way I looked at it. But these comic writers have so much free time on their hands. That's why, like, people like Sean Gordon Murphy, any of these comic writer artists, these combination that they can do a good book. I didn't care for White Knight. I also hate the Joker and Harley Quinn, so that doesn't help none. But I didn't care for the concept story, but it sold well. It looked.
Oh yeah, I love that book so much. Please just have one of those books every month. I'm purely from profit. Oh my God. Please.
Look, okay, that right there. Okay, here's the
White
thing.
Knight 2 and 3 and 4, please.
White Knight, like, what if White Knight 2, like if they were to do like that kind of 8-ish, like say DC says, okay, we're going to do another 8 issues of White Knight 2, and then maybe have like a 3-month gap between issues, like let them get enough build up or something like that kind of thing.
Yeah,
I think that would series of miniseries, because ongoing books is like there's something like, oh, I'd like to see a 200. I can't see myself doing 200 issues of one book. I could see myself doing 20 or so miniseries of one concept. Like here's a four issue story, but then maybe like like what they used to do. I don't know how well it's sold. And well, maybe you don't have any memory of this, but you know those incredible books that Boom Studios is putting out.
Yeah.
I don't know if they sold well, but I like that formula.
It's okay. I mean, it'll dive us into a whole other part of the conversation, but this is where the marketing stuff really comes into play, because there are books out there that have good formats, good distribution, tied into good things that nobody knows exists. And in the early slits, when you're ordering them, and we talked already about how hard it is to reorder things, they make it very hard to know these books are out there, understand the audience that's coming in. One of the things that Diamond or somebody ethical or competent could do is publish some numbers about what kind of orders other retailers are giving. So in other words, if I go into an ordering system and I'm going to order some books, I would like to see kind of some general numbers about what other retailers are doing, because that might inform me of something I'm missing. You know, we all kind of order the same. We try and collude as best we can. I mean that in a nice way on Facebook and other places and different Google groups. But if I could see a stat that this one issue is doing really well, that would help. I'd order more of it, and then that number would go up, and other retailers would order more of it. It would help the business as a whole, because the more advanced knowledge we have into something, the better we can market it in our shops, the better we can reach out to publishers and others to do things, and it would have a huge impact in terms of getting things into the hands of people. But but that's a complex topic. I definitely think it's Image's model, where you put a run of issues out. It's got an established writer, artist. They care about the content. They're doing their thing. They take 3 or 4 months off, and they come back and they do another run. That's very positive. But it is, generally speaking, the artists don't fuck around on social media as much. They don't have time. And there is a little bit more of an understanding that the relationships with the fans is important, and disrupting that will screw them financially. The writers, they have more time on their hands. I think there's a desire to kind of, in a weird kind of sick way, hone their craft a little bit by seeing if they can write something to get some kind of weird reaction and use that in their work. I think that's something that happens. And then the editors are just a bunch of garbage. So I mean that in the nicest way possible. There are nice editors out there. I'm sorry. I talked to several. I think I've alluded to you. I chat with. I've chatted in the past with Heather Antos. I will in the future. I don't agree with very much, but it all comes down.
Unlike me, you actually try to build bridges and have communication with people, even if you don't always agree with them. To
an extent, yeah. It's practical. I need it for my business. I mean, I can't run around just peeing on everybody. It will ultimately impact.
Unless you work as editor at DC Comics or something like that.
Yeah. No,
not literally, but figuratively, kind of thing.
Oh, so. Man, I mean, so. There's always a nugget of truth in anything. Who was Kane, the Mockingbird writer? I'm terrible with names.
I know who you're talking about, though.
Yeah. But she made a comment that the comics is a class action lawsuit waiting to happen. You have no fucking idea. I mean, for all the high-minded stuff that goes on Twitter about, various sexist behavior and everything, the amount of people hooking up and doing insane shit down at the cons, and this is every con. It's off the charts. These guys, it is everything that you suspected is and more. I'm not gonna bag on anybody. In fact, a lot of the people who, some of the YouTubers go after for being, work wives and other things, I think that's actually usually inaccurate. It's not those people. But the blowing off steam at the convention is it's a stereotype, and it is 100% true.
I was talking to somebody about this. There was a convention, and they did of course they usually have those like talent scout kind of things going on. Those editors going out doing talent scouting. and how I was like, yeah, I don't think they're going out scouting. I think they're just going out for vacation because it's a corporate funded vacation, especially because like you look at a lot of these people, oh, do they interact? Like, you see who interacts with who on Twitter. Now it could be just a coincidence, but it's kind of fun. It's like, it isn't, I really don't believe that's the case. It's like you don't hire strangers usually. You don't usually hire who's the best artist, your colorist, or whatever you're looking for. You hire who you know, and that's why the tip for getting in people, like, get your notepads out, befriend an editor or a writer. If you're an artist, befriend a writer, even if there seem like nobody at the time.
Oh yeah,
befriend as many as you can, because one of them you might get lucky and hit gold. Stay friendly with them, kiss their ass, and guess what? You might one day work for Marvel and get paid pennies on the dollar. It's like, and that's the truth, though. It's like this is like they go out and like they'll have these people jump through hoops. Some of these, when they're looking for colorists and some like inkers and stuff like that, and so like mostly they hook somebody. A lot of artists nowadays, they either ink it themselves or they already get hooked up with somebody else. So it's like, what's the point?
Yeah, if you're aspiring to be in the industry, you're an artist. Yeah, the best thing you could do is make friends with writers and editors, and it's easy to do. In a lot of cases, they're pitching various projects, so offer to do the art. I mean, you're sitting there eating ramen in your apartment anyway. Go make some art for them, and make those connections. It is an incredibly incestuous industry. And when they get to the position, any kind of position of power, they will bring you along. That is the right thing to do. If you're a writer, buddy up to editors, show that you can produce. Unfortunately, be willing to work for garbage, because that's, if you show that you can produce and be consistent and put in work and you don't care about money, then, and you have some perseverance, you can do it. If you're an editor, I don't know what the skill to crack there is, other than nepotism. I mean, just figure out somebody create some work, kiss ass, and eventually you get somewhere. I mean, again, there are nice people in here, and it is such a small community, and the advice that people get that always seems to piss off people on Twitter of don't piss anybody off, because we all know, yeah, that's true. And by the way, unfortunately, that's true for anywhere you go. If you want to go work at Google, don't post a bunch of shit about how Google sucks. You won't get hired there. That's sorry. They don't hire for honesty. That's just the world. I mean, that's not. I've seen these just crazy rants on Twitter and YouTube and other places of like, how dare this pro say that if you insult Marvel, then you won't get a job there. It's like, no shit. That's the. I mean,
well, the thing about it is, I used to have aspirations for working for Marvel until I didn't. Was it? Is it Sean Howe, the Untold History of Marvel Comics or something? I think that's
yeah.
I've never read it. I've been wanting to get my hands on the book, but honestly, the walls of text make me sleepy no matter how good they are. I gotta have my comics, man. I'm that bad of a reader. The last book I read, cover to cover, was actually The Stand. So it's like, wow, what a book to read, right? But that kind of behind the scenes stuff. If they're willing to screw over Kirby and the rest of these guys, like, oh well, that was years ago. They screwed over Jim Starlin just a few years back, and like, as much as I love Donny Cates, that was it wasn't Donny Cates' fault. That was a Brevoort deal.
Oh yeah, that was a dick move. No, 100%. Yeah.
And like, honestly, as much as I love Donny Cates, Jim Starlin with Alan Davis doing artwork, I think that'd be a much better choice. But whatever. What do I know, right? It's like, let's cancel that. Even though it was like middle of being like halfway illustrated at that point, they just up and canceled it.
Yeah.
And then like they're so cheap. But they have it's your universe if they're still using that marketing thing. It's so soulless, and at the point like where the idea of Image, these guys, even though like pretty much everybody at Image had to make, like, I'm trying to think of like, you mentioned the other day, I mentioned like when I'm in Blacklisted or I kicked out of the industry, I mean like when it was like that Nakatomi Tim and some of them other people trying like, and not within the cliques, not the cliques going after, but like individuals trying to like get people fired and blacklisted or whatever. Like it seems like when that happens, like it just makes them people more popular. So I phrased it incorrectly, but like the image creators, for the most part, like the ones that the big names do, they all came from something else, like Brian K. Vaughan, Kirkman, his Marvel work. I mean, yeah, he was doing Battle Pope and all that, but I think it was his Marvel work that kind of got him bigger. It's like, that was the thing. You go slum it at the big, usually Marvel, and then you go and, parlay that into a career at, publishing your own comics.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
yeah. I think it's you have to understand I think a lot of people, when they're going into a job, they mistake the job they want versus, or the job the way they want it to be versus the way it is. Comics is what it is. It's an industry like almost any other industry that's built on friends and network and nepotism. There are some significant problems in the industry. We've been talking about them. They need to be addressed. They should. The unnatural part of comics is these problems should be addressed by success. And we're seeing success with movies and media and other things. And the fact that they're not is abnormal. And that should worry people, because that is the most dangerous part of comics, is that the popular movies and the popular merchandising and the big companies that are putting money into it and everything else, that should equal more success, and it should equal more quality. And it typically, there is that boom that happens. We aren't seeing that. And that is, in fact, if anything, sales in the industry is inverse to the mass market appeal that's happening. And, the good news in all that is that it won't hold. It will. There is a point in time when Disney realizes they're leaving money on the table, and they just move to do other things, whether it's licensing out the content or just making major changes. That's possible. Or it just kind of collapses on itself. I mean, it only takes, the industry is so fragile at this point, it only take, 2 or 3 really determined, powerful, well-connected people to come in and sweep the market, like Jobs did when he came back at Apple or various other places, and it can turn around. It definitely can turn around, but the fact that it's not, I mean, it's worrying to see the industry so listless, and the dirty truth behind that is there's just not enough money in it. There's no real major players going to come in and make waves because there's not the cash.
What if there was a Chinese company, like kind of what they did for they bought the UFC from the Fertittas, they bought Legendary Pictures, they bought a bunch of these Chinese conglomerates, like these multinational,
It would be a 2-step process though. They could do that and put the money in, but then they would also have to put the staff in. And so it's, I actually have a lot more confidence, and I'm not just saying next year in the chat earlier, but for an Alterna or one of the smaller indies to have some people come into it with money. To use a wrestling analogy, you get the money mark in, who's going to come in and put in, it'd be funny. I'd love to get his opinion on it, but you put in $1 million to Alterna. What does that do as an investment? Does that help? I mean, you've got people with passion. You have people who are trying to disrupt the industry. What if they had some funding? What would that mean?
Well, if Peter wants to come, I could actually send him the Hangout link if he's available to come on.
Well, I don't have $1 million to give Peter, but I'm
just in general, yes, all right, cool. Well, he's in.
Yeah.
All right, here we go. Let me get the link to him. I'll send it to your Alterna account.
There you go. Just connect us up. We'll get him funded. But I do.
This. When you win the lottery, Perch. When you win the lottery, we're going to hold you to the fire with this. Because if you don't follow through, then I'm sorry, sir, you will be eliminated. Goodbye. Oh God, I watching some old stuff that came up and made me kind of not necessarily cringe, but it was like, oh my God. And it was a WWF one when they had all the WWF guys on. But it's like my thing is like the link is sent, Peter. But this like it's kind of like what happened to Vince McMahon buying up all the territory. It's like, yes, now we have a Ring of Honor, New Japan Pro Wrestling, but yes, it got bigger. But WCW went under, ECW went under. They bought them all up. It's just like what I feel fear that Marvel will happen with Marvel. Like Disney will buy up. Disney's already bought. Disney owns Predator and Aliens for all that's holy, and Planet of the Apes. They own that now. And eventually, if they own, you know, Warner Brothers, they'll own everything else. They'll own because doesn't who owns Wizard of Oz? MGM or Warner Brothers? I think it's MGM, ain't it?
Wizard of Oz is MGM. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's Disney now. Disney owns Wizard of Oz, old school Wizard of Oz.
Well, no,
the Wizard.
It's an insane amount of collaboration, but I mean, money. So there's two parts to it. One, if you have a big roller come in, or you have some investment firms come in and you put some money into it, great. The second part of it is you've got to have people who know what to do with that money. And this is what separates, again, I use tech, a lot of companies in the Valley, they get funded. You have, huge valuations for various tech ideas. And some make it and some don't. And the differentiation is people who know what to do with the money. So, I mean, so we'll test kind of the knowledge of some of the people in the room. There's, a lot of people are familiar with WebEx and Skype and these video conferencing solutions. And you had a group of people leave Cisco, a giant corporation, and basically, I should say, be careful what I say, take a bunch of IP, we'll say it that way, and create this company Zoom, ZOOM, which is just video conferencing. And within, roughly 2 years, maybe a little bit more than that, I mean, they've got almost $1 billion valuation. And it was because they know what to do with the money. They've been through it before, and they're able to build a business out of it. So they got some cash, they got, additional amount of money, and they got a high valuation. They're able to do something with that cash. The same thing can happen with comics because the barrier to entry is low enough. But it would absolutely, I mean, it takes some smart people who have a good desire to disrupt the industry, and it takes some money. And I know where the money is. I mean, there's money out there that could be used to fund this stuff, but you got to have people who really want to disrupt the industry and are not going to get caught up in nonsensical shit around, how, it is the sad trombone noise of when I see this money getting raised on various Kickstarters and things, and then we want to talk about Daryl AO or tits in comics or these kinds of things. I mean, tits are wonderful, but good Lord, you've got a bunch of money now. Let's build a distribution channel out of it. Let's do something powerful with that cash, because the industry needs it and the retailers need it. I want to see true disruption in this industry. It can happen. It can definitely happen. But anyway,
yeah, it's this idea of, I understand you want to make money, and like, hey, this is, once you raise them past some stretch goals, these stretch goals, like, oh, well, we're going to raise this much, we can do this much. That doesn't cost you much of nothing at all. You're just pocketing that cash, which is, what? That's, fair enough. But like you said, to like, okay, we've raised enough, like with these stretch goals, we've raised enough for a second volume. We've raised enough for this, that, or whatever. Like we're raising enough for a mini-series spinoff or something, like that kind of thing. You know what? That'd be incredible to actually see that happen. Like one graphic novel, like is in many of these, like one graphic novel of, original graphic novel, they don't move. They really don't move. They're great for direct sales, like to customers, but you put them in shops. Like apparently Richard's idea for Jawbreakers is like, it would be 4 issues, and like Anarch Press would publish them and everything. That was going to happen now, but it's funny to actually.
But here's what he should do. I'll tell you right out, and free advice that nobody will take. Take your property, which generated now a proven bankable, it's an IP that you can attach some dollars to, add some interest in it, and it's there. Take it, create a license for it, be a gatekeeper like Miller does, and say, if you're a writer and an artist, I'm going to choose only the best talent. They can come in, they can use these characters. I have to approve everything, and I'm getting, whatever kind of commission. 20%, 30%, keep it low so you encourage mass, and then, farm out your property, get other people to actually take this and try and put it somewhere. And in that process, talk to some publishers who don't want to deal with you, Richard, because of the whatever controversy surrounding you, but they still want the property. I mean, Antarctic would love the property given what's happened with it. So put some other creators that are out making it, taking it somewhere where they can dodge the controversy and just license it out. You don't want to be a comic pro, I get it, great. License it, make some cash, make ongoing revenue for yourself, put content into the market that helps others, provide some consistency. Do that. It's a path to money. there are definitely people who would take that property, do stuff with it, and pay a royalty. I mean, sure. Jawbreakers is not a property like G.I. Joe or known, but it is absolutely still something you can do some stuff with. And
you'd have to really reboot that though, because I'm looking at it I was looking at it as like, they much do. I mean, I'd have to like basically reinvent everything and do like an ultimate version of everything. I was like, if I were to do something like that, just thinking about it now.
Sure.
But this one thing I wanted to mention, I had someone reach out to me. I'll talk to you about that later after the chat. But you know how in tech, well, especially Milo Yiannopoulos, he was getting funded by very conservative people, basically acting as his patron, throwing money at him for, whatever, being disruptive force for conservative good, that kind of thing. He was like one of those, so he was good at making money, making changes and making things better, not so much because, you get us on Twitter, the things he said about the whole, the weird pedophilia stuff, whatever. Mm-hmm. But there are crazy thoughts considering how much money is raised, and like there's a lot of people, like a lot of money raised. Same thing with that Vox Day deal with that alt hero. I'm pretty sure there are some conservative people out there that want to remain private, because I had one of these people reach out to me asking for conservative names and this and that. Like, by asking me, like, I have no clue, because I guess I was like a little vocal of some certain stuff, but wanting to throw money their way. Now, it shouldn't be that hard to set up dummy accounts on Indiegogo or Kickstarter, that kind of thing, or even to put on PayPal or Patreon, that kind of thing. Throw money at people if you want to. Mm-hmm. And like I say, this conservative thing, it's real successful. And both Ethan and Richard are very vocal about that. So I'm not saying all those people, there are certain people, I've encountered them saying, the only reason they're supporting it is so they can piss people off. Other people say, hey, if I can piss people off and it be good, hey, I win both ways. Hey, it looks good. Or there might that other option out there. It could be just money thrown at them because of their political leanings or ideologies.
Sure.
And at that point, it's like, damn, I might need to start acting like hey, my name is Larry King. I'm very conservative. Throw me some money. It's like, throw me, like slum with it. Because it's like, Jesus. It's like, if they're throwing that much money at them, and it's like, I don't know, dude. It's like, that's the thing. It's like the third, fourth, fifth, so on project. He's already on the second one, right? So yeah, it's like this, but.
So it's interesting. I mean, I heard the comments. He doesn't want to be in this industry forever, but he's built a brand.
Yeah, he's in it, and he has to be beholden to his own standards. Hey, pros need to act professional. So,
or take your property, license it out, and be the person you are, and let others act professional. I mean, there's no one route to success.
Yeah,
but you can't play all routes at once. So just pick a route and make yourself rich. I said before, I'll say it again. I want all these people to be rich. And yeah, it was a guy in the chat. A billionaire's couch money could fund tons of comic runs. I mean, a millionaire's couch money. Some guy who has, a $40,000 Facebook bonus check from doing some work this year could fund a small run. I mean, it's the barrier to entry is tiny, and if you just don't do stupid shit with your money, and so that's. I think there's a lot of routes that people could take, and but Twitter is a weird little ecosphere. I think it's proven to create enough attention that you can run a successful marketing campaign and do these Indiegogo things on both sides. What Kwanzaa's done for his book, same thing. But at some point, that there is a law of diminishing returns. As somebody mentioned earlier, Mark Wade throws his weight around. That's nice, but every time he does that, it has a little bit less effect. And I mean, whatever happened in the end with Antarctic and Jawbreakers and everything else, if it's not 100% clear, Wade standing at Marvel is not what it was, not anywhere close. And the ability for kind of one voice in the industry to make a bunch of noise is consistently dropping. So not a lot of barriers. I mean, if Anyway, I'm just repeating myself. There's a million ways to get to the finish line here. I think more people need to focus on the goal, and the goal is make some money, get some comics out there, build a business. You know, if you're lucky enough to have a bunch of followers and you built a brand, leverage that brand, do it directly or license it out or sell it to somebody else or do something with it. But produce comics, get them out there, and stay out of the stupid shit.
And that's the biggest thing right there. Like, actually have an effort to build your brand, to reach out to people. I keep on mentioning this because this was very formative, very, very informative thing for me when I did that Denver Zine Fest back in 2016, my one and only comic show. We actually had a table. I split a table with a former friend of mine, and I'm 2,000 plus miles away from home, and up in the altitude, high desert, drinking way more water than I should because I'm a flatlander and not used to the altitude, and the atmosphere. Denver's a depressing place, and it was it is like, because I'm like, oh wow, they used to be so much into their like they hit economic hard times like the mid '80s and stuff, and they never really recovered. It just went downhill until the whole pot thing, and even that just like, so now you just got a bunch of homeless and potheads walking. Yeah, that's real nice. Yeah, oh, pot, that solves everything. Yeah, right. So I'm at a gay friendly. It's a gay church. Sitting behind me is the pews, and then the altar and statue of Jesus. So anybody comes up my table has a look at Jesus staring them down as they're picking up one of my comics, where an angel has her wings all clipped off and she's getting yelled at by God, who's a giant mastiff or bulldog who's like acts like Hulk Hogan, Macho Man, yelling at old ladies.
You've got a lot of things going on right now. I just gotta say,
it was one comic actually. That was like, but there was one of 20 plus, and they're all like variously would. Not necessarily blasphemous, but close. I'd say, yeah, well, no, they're actually blasphemous. Yeah, there's some blasphemous stuff in there. So I'm surprised I made any money that day. I'm sitting there, I'm miserable inside, but I'm like, hey, how you doing? You having a great day? Putting on a good face. Not like, hey, like so many comic people are that at conventions online, they are miserable. And if you're being miserable, get out. Just leave. It's like, I want to be like Louis Gossett Jr., an Officer and a Gentleman. I want to kick their ass and like I want you to quit, Mayo. I got nowhere else to go. That's how I feel about comics. I got nowhere else to go. It's like I got comics and that's it. My really shitty tattoo I got in the Philippines or whatever, that kind of thing. But this idea, there are people that you need, if they can't take the heat, get out of the kitchen. And that right there, we have so many people that should be making comics. That's why I encourage people. Like there's people like, oh, I don't know if I'd be great at it. I'm like, try, give it a shot. You may not have you may fail, but at least you'll have tried. This idea of like, oh, well, I know it won't sell well. My thing is, like, I know I'm not cut out for Alterna right now. Also, because I don't, on Clip Studio Paint, I don't know how to do 6.125 inches, because I can't do that on Clip Studio Paint. I can only do 6.13. It can either go 1.3 or 1.4. It can't go 1.25. So I can't actually format my pages properly and submit it. And I'm like, screw it. So it's like, I'm kind of tapped out. I was like, I'll just print them up on my photocopier and this and that, whatever. But that's the technical limitations. The only thing stopping me currently. Also, I'm like the monkey with the computer, hitting the computer and like throwing it away. I get frustrated with technology a lot. But there are so many people. I want to see more comics and more variety. I want to see stuff that isn't just niche, like more comic people. Like, oh well, it's this, like 3 or 4 niche things all in one. There's no excuse for that. Like, you can, like a book, like I keep bragging on. Everybody loves Brian Edward Hill now for because he's been kind of graced upon by the High Council, or he's a good writer or some bullshit. But I'll never forgive him and Matt Hawkins for that horrible Cyberforce. I will never stop shitting on that book. That's one book that should, like, when you think Top Cow, you think Witchblade, Darkness, Cyberforce, these books. This is like 20 plus pages of we gotta get a consent form. He's got to consent to surgery. You consented for him. Why did you consent for me? That's it for 20 pages. It was like an episode of ER, not even a good episode of ER. And I've lost all interest. And also after reading his detective, it's like, it's mediocre. It's not, and people love it. I don't get it.
Well, I think A bunch of different ways to look at it. I think again, we said it earlier. It's sad that you get here, but his his online presence is professional and good, and he encourages people to read his books, not chases them away. And while it's sad that that's a bar that you need to praise, that's where we are at this point. So good on him for that. I think definitely he's one of the better. Where that's concerned. And then his issues, I mean, I think his work's fine. I like some stuff he does. I don't like other stuff. I didn't care for that Cyberforce, but for different reasons. But he in terms of a business portfolio, and this is the boring thing that will get nobody excited, but I posted something about this. What he and King have an interesting balance. It's a good kind of weird harmony of their two styles right now in the books that is good for sales. And so if you're a reseller and there's DC and they're putting out 2 books and you've got King's Batman and you got Hill's Detective and the styles are weirdly complementary, and so every other week you have one of these things, it's perfect. Don't fuck with that. I mean, if I'm saying as a reseller, you're attracting, you've got a very good net that you're getting fans in, and you're giving a little bit of everybody what they want. The frequency's good and everything's good. Just don't nobody fuck with that. I wish there was, I don't know if that was a happy accident or if it was a plan. I'd love to think it was a plan. Probably it was an accident, but that's an example of one part of the publishing world that's just functioning really well right now for money. As a fan, I mean, and it's interesting actually, the whole Batman world, a lot of people shit on it for, DC just kind of continually, raping the Batman corpse until it's dead. But you got Murphy's White Knight. You have all these different Batmans out there and these different flavors of books, and it just kind of works. It's a delicate balance, and they could screw it up easy. I think the 3 Joker storyline that Johns has coming up, a lot of people are looking forward to it. That may be the one that tips the whole thing over, but who knows? I mean, there's a lot of good creators out there, and with a lot of different mentality. It's just me, but I've become completely numb to the politics. Most of them hate Trump. I remember still from Trump getting, when the election happened and he was named president. I was watching the news coming out, like, holy shit, I can't believe this just happened.
I went to sleep that night and woke up the next morning, and like I followed a lot more comics people back then.
Yeah.
In the meltdown, I was laughing I woke up because I thought it was like foregone conclusion. Like, yeah, it's a rigged game, and wake up and see everybody just losing their shit.
Oh,
it's
yeah.
like, but we cheated to make sure, like, we bought Bernie Sanders off, and everybody's just losing it. And I'm like, this is like the most I've laughed in a long time, if not ever.
It was funny. Yeah, it was
great, man.
Just watching the meltdown. I mean, it was funny at the same time. And I all these parts of me, I was not a fan. I'm still not a fan.
Me neither, yeah, but it's funny to see these people act.
It was funny. I mean, I admit it was funny. And just to remove all doubt, I mean, Hillary was absolutely awful too. So I mean, this was really the election of shit. But that is what it is. I mean, if people here are passionate to one politic, good for you. If I see it the same way as comics. If you're getting what you want out of this election, then man, good on you. I think it sucks. Hey, have a good night, Altera. I guess I'm numb to it. I mean, I see creators come in and they want to say something about Trump 4, 5, 6, maybe 50 times a day. I don't know why you do that. I don't know what the point is anymore. We all know you hate him, but whatever. By the way, Peter, we should get together. I actually am semi-serious about the money. So let's go. You may be already gone. Anyway, I think to me, it just boils down to the work. Does the work look like the people care about what they're doing or not? Are they trying to build a business up or not? That's why, I roll my eyes at Mards or Zurcher or Larson or somebody. I mean, but Larson's a perfect example. If you look at what he posts, he is 100% trolling people. I have no idea if he believes most of the things he believes or not, because it doesn't really matter. You look at his feed, if things get kind of quiet for a couple days, he'll throw something out there designed to poke. And damn it if a bunch of people don't take the bait every single time. And
the biggest thing when he was talking shit about newsprint, I'm like, like, oh, it's you can't hold the color and it's too expensive. It's more expensive than that. Honestly, the image quality paper, all the paper comics sucks, man. It really
yep. Oh yeah.
And Alterna, it's made in America by Americans. Newsprint, it looks great, feels great, smells great, all that. And it's like, here's the thing. I'm not I told Peter on his own damn stream, like when he's like, oh, inviting people on, I'm like waiting to join because he's like, I want to make sure it's okay. I just want to hop in while he's in the middle of talking about something. I wanted to wait till I told him, I was like, do I like every book? Like I think it's everything. No, but it's like I have not hated a single one. It's like it may not be from me. It's like I can accept that because of the price point, and the low price point allows you to be much more forgiving, not as vitriolic. Because like if I'm paying $4 for something, like damn it, it better be good. And it's like if it's not, I get pissed off because I feel like I've been ripped off. I can't blame my comic shop. I can flip through the book at the store, but I don't want to read. Like hold on, let me read through a little bit and a little like. Anybody that does that, it's like put the fucking book down, put it down.
Mm-hmm.
To me, it's rude. Go to a library, do that shit.
I mean, it's a dick move. I mean, nobody. People come in, they flip through a book, and I have no issue with that. I try and put reader copies out. I think that's a good thing to do, especially for the stuff where our creative team switched over. It's a relaunch. But you definitely have those customers that come in. I had this guy who would come in, and you ask yourself, at what point do you kick somebody out? And you never really want to do that because no matter how justified you are, it almost always makes you look bad to the other customers in there, and you don't feel good about that. But we had this guy who would come in and then just like walk down the line and pick out like 20 comics, like they're going to buy something. And then he would just sit down on the floor, just sit on the floor.
Oh my God.
He would just start reading the comics. And then we're looking at him like, all right, who's going to tell this guy to get the fuck up and, come buy your comic, but you just can't sit there. And he would sit. And then at one point he swiveled and just leaned back against the comic rack. And his back is just, now he's leaning against comics. So he's just fucking up all the comics on my wall.
I would have been like, dude,
yeah. We walk over like, hey, get the fuck up. What are you doing? And the guy who was working, I'm in there, I'm like, oh my God. I mean, I'm just tired. And somebody goes over and gets pissed. And he's like, get the fuck up. You can't sit here and read this. Get the fuck up. He's like, and the comics you picked out are stupid too. You picked out shitty comics. It's like, get out of here.
Good for you. Goddamn. Good. Because I guess you're employees at the shop, right?
My boy. Yeah. No, it wasn't. Yeah, my boy. So actually, somebody in the chat, and that was, I think, the week we decided to bag and board everything. So.
Oh my God, that right there. Like, when my old the shop that fucked me with the Umbrella Academy, and also other things too. There were some other things. That was like, I've been picking up a book, and the reason I picked it up, it was a Dark Horse Presents, and it had a 2-page. It was actually a 2-page comic, illustrated and written by David Lynch.
Oh yeah.
And I wanted to pick it up because I'm a David Lynch fan. He's like, don't pick this book up. I ain't gonna let you buy this book. And I'm like, oh, he's fucking with me. He won't fucking with me. He put the book behind the counter.
Yeah, I've always wondered about that, man. So we can tell horror stories for a little while. I mean, you've had a million. I've been in shops. I've told people who work for me and myself, I'm like, if you refuse to sell something to somebody, you get fired. And I've fired some people who are like, hey, I won't let you buy the Superman. It's like, hey, I don't give a shit. If we bring it in here, you're selling it. I do not. You can't. And in fact, that's one of my rules, is that I do not like, if somebody asks me, hey, do you like this? I'll give a very, I'm sure people would say, pussy answer and be like, well, I'll tell the truth. This wasn't something I liked, but you might like it. What do you like? Do you like the Flash? Okay, then this is kind of like the Flash, or whatever. I will adjust my answer. But if somebody comes in cash in hand in a comic, I'm taking their cash. I mean, that's just, you're an idiot if you don't. But it is funny. It's funny what people decide to do. You know, some people come in and, like I said, they want to thumb through the comic, and a little bit of that reading's fine. Too much, you know, there's that kind of balance you draw there. I've had people come in, and you know, then I've had more than once. I don't know if it's my location or some vibe I'm giving off, but you know, a couple will come in and like, hey, can we use the bathroom? And I'm like, sure. And then they both go in there. I'm like, okay, you don't go fucking in my bathroom. You know, this is a comic shop. That I don't know why that keeps happening. It's not constantly, but it happens. It's happened multiple times where it's like, I don't know.
Quit fucking in my comic shop.
Like, I don't know what's on my Yelp right now, but you don't get to go. Don't go in there. The bathroom is not for fucking. Yeah, you know, so you have that. I had somebody come in once and pick up a comic and then bring it up and say, you shouldn't sell this. This is going to date me a little bit. It was Evil Ernie, and it's like, you know, this comic is, yeah, I know, this comic is satanic, and I'm like, okay, but you know, it costs money, so you're gonna buy it or not. I mean, I don't know. It's like, yeah, this comic and Lady Death, you can't sell this. I'm like, you know, get the fuck out of here. I'm gonna sell comics. It's weird. People definitely have weird things they do. I'm glad a little bit. I lived through and made a bunch of mistakes decades ago when there wasn't Yelp. Today, I'm sure, you know, I'd get torched for some of the things I used to do, but now it's all pretty mellow now.
You ran it like Roadhouse, man. You're cracking skulls. Be nice. Not time to not be nice.
I mean, anyone who's had staff, I mean, hiring people is so hard. And I mean, because one, you're not hiring, you're not bringing in people who, you know, you're going to review their resume and call their references. I mean, you're bringing in people who are willing to take a, you know, for all intents and purposes, minimum wage job to sell comic books. So, you know, you're going to get a mixed bag. And, you know, we still have a TV in the shop, and we'll run things. I've been lucky. I've never gotten a cease and desist from the studios from showing movies. I know some people have, but I remember I came in kind of unexpectedly one day, and there's just porn playing in the screen. I'm like, hey, what are you doing? It's like, I'm just showing porn. I'm like, you can't run. I mean, I don't know why this matters. It's like, it's 2:30 in the afternoon. What are you doing watching porn at 2:30 in the afternoon? I realize how stupid that question sounds, but like, no, you can't put this in here, and it's 2:30. This is an unnatural hour to have public porn, I think. I mean, I don't know. Weirdest conversations you have.
That reminds me, I was at a comic shop in Woodstown, New Jersey. I think it's actually closed now, called Monkey King Comics. All out of them. I don't give a shit. They were underneath. It was a basement shop. It was like right in downtown Woodstown. Like, they had the big old bank that's like 100 years old or some shit. But it's underneath the deli. Deli's like, you'd walk up the set of steps, and there's a deli. It's at the comic shop's basement. So you have the pipes for the septic, the fresh water, and everything, and underneath, so like above your head, because only part of the shop actually had ceiling. They had the foam board. So you're walking through there. The floor is like this really shitty tile that's years old, so it's already starting to ripple and everything. And I walk into the comic shop, and the guy is playing hardcore pornography, loud as can be, no headphones, no nothing. And I'm like, Jesus. And the guy looked like a creep to begin with. So I go in the comic shop in here, and I'm thinking, oh, he'll stop. Like, after going, he paused it. I go and start looking through, because they used to have, before I think they closed, I think they went under business. Went out of business, went under, whatever. But they had old, like 80s and early 90s Marvel trade paperbacks. Like, they had the Fatal Attractions, they had X-Men, the Asgardian Wars or whatever, you know, the one with the New Mutants, like the original trade paperbacks. They had all the, like, which for cover price, but you can't find these things anywhere without paying like $60 a piece. And like, they're charging cover price. I'm like, I'll take it. So I went and bought like the Executioner Song and a bunch of old X-Men trade paperbacks. Can't pass it. Love that stuff. But while I'm standing there going through the stuff, and he starts playing it again, I'm hearing, so I got shit water coming on my left ear, hear the water flushing through the pipe, and hear people up top. And then I hear I hear the porn on my right ear, and I'm like, I got to get these books and get out of here, because I'm going to lose my damn mind. And it was like, and it's the stereo. When people think of like the comic book store, like the disgusting comic store, this is the epitome of it. Oh yeah, spider webs and everything. It was disgusting.
I think it's funny, because there are retailers out there. When we get together, I got together a bunch of people. The closest I came, and people are following along on Twitter. I can confirm it was close. The retailer summit down in San Diego was so close to me just losing my goddamn mind.
Oh, I was reading that shit, dude. Like, I was thinking you're going to.
I was so close. I mean, I was going to be the guy. I was going to be the one that they were going to
stabbing,
say.
the recurring of the stabbing.
Well, there's been one for the last couple of years. There's one retailer who just gets pissed and just belts something out in the room. And nothing serious happens, but it's like somebody's like, oh, fuck you. And I was hot. I was tired. The guy next to me from Newsarama was egging me on. And it was just, it was tough. But it's funny to me when retailers, we get together and we're like, I don't know why people think comic shops, why do they always, project us as these disgusting, crap holes? And it's like, well, because most aren't, but then there are some like that. And that are just in a basement or down in a garage, or you have the retailer who won't sell things, or you got the guy watching porn in the, in the middle of the day. And again, maybe this is just me, but why are you in a public place just watching porn? I mean, the plot's not that good. I mean, what are you doing? Your hands are above the counter, so I don't know what you're doing. Like, why are you watching this? It's just for fun. You don't watch porn for fun like that. Anyway, whatever. But I digress. I'm very sensitive to things that make comics look smaller and look dumber, like the things we've been talking about. But also, my reaction to that. The Jim Jeffries segment on comics. It was funny to watch that reaction, because the segment comes out, and then immediately people start saying, "Oh, this makes the Comicsgate people look like tools," and then the different argument came out of like, "Oh, the editing was done that was very manipulative." Of course, it was. Every show like that does shitloads of editing. But the thing that bothered me was neither of those things, and not Richard or any of actually his comments. That was pretty irrelevant.
That haircut, though, dude. Jesus Christ.
Well, yeah, I don't know.
Prince Valiant 2099. Jesus Christ, dude.
Why did you? Now, I do have to, I mean, there's been so many memes and things on the haircut, but in all seriousness, if you're coming on a show and they're going to ask you about misogyny and white racism and everything else, why would you get the Hitler cut? Why would you do that? I mean,
he looks so tired. It looked like they just woke him up. And it's like
it was a bad cut, but I mean, it's like you went in and said, "Give me the white supremacist special." What are you doing? But regardless,
if you're Fallout 4 fan, Elder Maxon, he got the Elder Maxon haircut.
why would you lean into that? But regardless of him, the thing that bothered me about the interview and the segment was not him. It was the goofy jokester way that comics were treated. From the opening segments, like, "Hey, here's some shots from Black Panther," and all they needed was like, "Pow, wham, kaboom, comics." I was like, we've got $1 billion industry, and you're treating comics like it's retarded. And then you bring in this panel of the dopiest looking cosplayers, and nobody can tell me that the show producers are like, "We're going to get a diverse group of cosplayers that represent comics, and we're not going to make fun of them anyway." They deliberately pick people that would look like dopes. And then they piled them all up together, like, here's some comic fans, and then here's an angry comic fan. It's like, why are you making comics look stupid? Because that is, at the end of the day, the segment was not about Comicsgate. It was not about, diversity or any of that other shit. It was just another chance to make fun of comics. And on all sides. It's the cosplayers did not come off looking good in that. Nobody did. And that's why we got us as an industry and as a bunch of fans stop leaning into things that make us look retarded. That's
the best damn thing. That is so fucking true. It's like this idea that comics, it's for like bedwetters and Nancy boys or whatever, like that kind of thing. It's like this, and it doesn't help none of it. It's Viacom. What do you expect? It's Comedy Central. It's Jim Jeffries.
Yeah.
Comedians. Here's the thing. This idea that comedians like everyone's like Bill Hicks or George Carlin. No, like most of these guys, comedians are usually most pathetic human beings on the face of the earth. Drug addiction, sex addictions. Like I used to listen to Opie and Anthony. Had Jim Norton on. Jim Norton introduced the concept to me. Like, I never knew about cucking. I never knew about trannies or any of that stuff. It wasn't for Opie and Anthony.
Yeah.
Like, this is like years prior to Twitter and all this and that. Like, it was, you know, and this idea of him, and he's like, his sex addiction is like, oh, I got over my alcohol addiction before 18. Oh, I was sexually abused and this and that, and like this really horrible stuff. And oh, I can't have a stable relationship. But he is the voice for, like, these kind of like comedians are like, they're the voice of the people and they speak truths. And like, no, not really. They're entertainers. And it's like this idea of taking comics and like, oh, Biff Bam Pow. Like, it's like, yeah, that worked for Adam West Batman. That worked for a show that would air Tuesdays and Wednesday nights, and, you know, meant for kids, but also have like a little bit of adult humor for adults watching as well. Because, you know, you might not get it when you're a kid, but parents will. I mean, especially if they sit there and you got one TV in the household, and you got little Johnny or little Susie watch their Batman. But this idea of treating them so, not even childish, but like so stupid and so ridiculous, it hurts. It hurts the medium. It hurts the concept. And it, you know, like, instead of, like, if I was doing something like that, I'd show everything from Love and Rockets to, you know, like Love and Rockets, old school X-Men, current Image, Saga. Like, I'm not a fan of Saga. It just ain't a book for me. And I will say that what's the name of it? It is The Private Eye, the other Brian K. Vaughan book, that limited series one that he did. Now that's incredible. Like, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Without Marcos Martin. Oh, beautiful artwork. And also very funny too. It's a very funny book, but also like the grandfather with Alzheimer's who has the really shitty arm tattoos, and he's trying to play Call of Duty, except they have no internet, so you can't play multiplayer. So it's great. It's perfect. It's a great story. Very, very cutting to the modern people of the day. But what do you expect from the same people who put out The Daily Show and, you know, all that stuff?
It's cheap content. It's the same. They've got a show to do once a week, and they're looking for stuff, and they're looking for easy layups to go and make fun of people. And you can sit there at home and feel superior in your underwear watching, you know, a bunch of lame cosplayers. And that's what that segment was all about. It had, you know, people are getting up in arms with like, oh, look, they're coming after they're trying to protect the SJW people, and it was none of that. It was for cheap laughs, and they accomplished their goal. And that's just where, you know, all of us, whether we're fans and other things, we got to stop walking into things that are designed to make us look stupid, particularly when the people who are baiting that trap are equally stupid. I mean, yeah.
And they also control the editing. And no matter what you say, you could say the most. Like,
oh yeah, no doubt about it.
If I didn't choose anybody, like, it'd be you or Peter Samedi to like represent comics, as far as I'm concerned.
Well,
you, like, both of you, because he's an artist, but he's all artist, a writer. He does like everything, and he also puts stuff. And you're an artist too, you know, damn good one. And I feel like you do more art. Don't give me this shit. You are fucking good. And if you try to say otherwise, I'm not gonna let you. Because like, no, I'm not kidding, dude. Like, you're a good artist, but it's this mentality, like, well, you know, like, you have great ideas, and you have so much, you know, potential for good out there, but I wouldn't even trust. No, I'm not trying to shine you. I'm just telling you the truth. But this idea of pushing, like, even if you guys were to get out there to push this positivity, if somebody had the editing bay, they just cut it up and make you sound like, you know, like you both just are dumb.
Absolutely.
They have brain damage or something.
Absolutely. No, I mean, look, and I think you can do anything with editing, and I'm sure actually Richard, in his part of the interview, I'm sure he presented his, you know, I'm sure he explained his terrible haircut and everything, and it was all great. But yeah, when you're handing the editing off to somebody else, of course they're going to go for the lowest common denominator. You know, the segment's going to be all of, you know, 4 minutes. So, you know, what do you think they're going to use your 2-hour interview? Of course not. They're going to boil it down to the things that make you look dumb, and you know, give the little gotcha moments and pull in a laugh track. And it's just, there's a lot of opportunity here, so we can't waste it on stupid shit that makes comics look dumb, and definitely not lean into it. But it's a trap. I've watched a lot of people in the industry on all sides, and it happens to everyone. They are very enamored by the idea of like, oh, I'm getting interviewed. And whether it's an online article or it's something in a magazine or it's, on TV, they all get like super, super excited. And 99% of the time they get just screwed because the person who's doing the interview is like, hey, check out funny books and look at, here's the losers who read comics. And that's every time because it's just too easy to make that story. And it's sad because I think there's a ton of stories that could be made right now around, hey, here's some, homegrown IP over the last 100 years that is now a multi-billion-dollar industry, and isn't this awesome? But that takes some thought, and it's just journalism doesn't reward thought right now for sure.
No, it rewards ideology. Like if you toe the line, and dear God, I'll say this about Trump: the idea of this whole fake news thing, and like, oh, we're not fake news, and they are so fake. It is so true. Shown the light how, and it's all over the place. It's like these comic websites, like, just, what you should do when they have the banners, like, we are a right-leaning website, we are a conservative website, we are a liberal. Because guess what? You're not trying to be. You have an agenda. Just admit it. Just admit what you are. Same thing with pirates. They're like, well, if the comics were less expensive, I'd buy them, but down the line, I'll help out. Like, no, just admit you're stealing, and just admit what you are. It's I stole that shit. It's like, yes, they deserve to die, and I hope they burn to hell.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm very against pirating. It obviously affects my business, so nobody should be confused why I'm against pirating. But I do, I'm not the moral police either. You do what you're going to do, everything else, but just have at least the integrity to admit what you're doing wherever you are. If you're stealing something, if you're pirating, it is stealing. That is what you're doing. That's fine. Again, fine. That you're probably not going to get caught. It's all going to be good. No judgment. I'll judge the action. I'm not going to judge you as a person. Do what you got to do. But don't sit there and say, hey, what I'm doing actually helps the industry because when I steal, it helps other people buy. That's bullshit. And it's bullshit. There's just stop. Same thing with the news. The story of the day that Jim, I was watching. I flip between the three different news, not really MSNBC because my brain can't wrap its head around that. But I've got CNN, I've got Fox. I'm flipping between the two because I like that game of like what spin is going on in each. And over on Fox, it's Trump, and they've got a live coverage of his speech, and he's on some very bizarre tangent about the embassy in Jerusalem, and they wanted $1 billion for it, and then he got it for 140,000. And I'm like, my brain's like, I don't know what story you're telling me, but all right. And then I flip over to CNN, and they're going, it's Jim Acosta. He's like, people were pestering me, and it's like, God damn it, there's no news. You're like, one of you is just showing the live feed. The other one, you've got a news reporter whining about how he's treated at a Trump rally. I mean, good Christ, I don't know what's going on here. People are not booing Jim Acosta because he's a liberal. They're booing because he's a big asshole. That's why. You've been an asshole for years. That's why they're booing you. You're an asshole. But I should end on something I should point out something positive. Yes, the one difference in this whole argument, and when you see all the fighting about Comicsgate and the different people around it, and the SJWs and the anti-SJWs and the pros and blah blah blah. The one thing that I will say is true from people who come into the shop, from people who post photos or whatever they happen to do, is by and large the critics, the people who are saying comics are in the wrong track, or I don't like this, or this creator is treating me the wrong way, or whatever it happens to be, they are buying comics. They are putting their money where their mouth is, and that does matter. That is a big deal, because a lot of people who are on the other side, who are out for, hey, don't complain about Iceman, it's a great comic. They're not buying it. We know from the numbers. We know when they admit that they steal. That audience, you're not buying your content. So like I've said before, I would love it if all these social justice comics that people hate or like to bitch about, I don't want them canceled. I want people buying them. So come in and buy them. By all means, let's see. Iceman became a top 5 seller. Come in and buy it. All these things. Somebody put out the challenge. What would make Miss Marvel sell? I think there's a ton of storylines that would make Miss Marvel sell. So we should make those, but people have to buy it. You need to show up to the shop or order it or whatever you're going to do. You got to buy it. Because in fairness, there were people saying, "Oh, why are we making a black?" It's funny. Pre-Black Panther, there was an interesting amount of people complaining about why is there even a Black Panther movie? It's a B-list superhero. This is just social justice and people cramming Black Panther down our throats. But in fairness, everyone showed up to watch that movie. That movie made a shitload of money. It made more money domestically than Avengers 3 domestically. So people showed up. Nothing wrong with that. That's good. Now for the comics, if you're going to love something, then you need to buy it. And it doesn't count if you're a reviewer for Bleeding Cool and you get your free advance copy and you say it's the best comic ever. It's the best comic ever. Then hustle your ass down to the shop and put down $3.99 and buy the comic. That drives me absolutely crazy when reviewers want to tell us all, what we should be reading and what the best things are, but they don't actually put their own skin in the game. You got to buy the books.
Yeah, exactly. That right there, the biggest. I have a problem. There are people I know, and I do it too, but not to really that degree because I do like a minute-long videos. Like, hey, this is a book I picked up. More like, hey, check this out. It's like more of that kind of thing. It's like showing somebody, hey, I picked this up, kind of thing. And also they're really old books, like stuff like 20, 30 years old, some of it. But when it comes to comic reviewing and this idea, I saw somebody's like, well, we do comic reviews here at this website. You can send us a PDF for a physical copy. We'll give you the mailing. And like, you just want free books. Like, who in this day and age, who goes is like, don't like. I honestly, one people I will draw a line with. Anybody's like, well, I gotta need what is it? Is this book good enough for me to pick up? They gotta see what other people think about it first. How about you take a chance on a book? Live free, live dangerously. Think of yourself for once. Pick up a book because hey, maybe the cover looks good, maybe the interior art looks good. Hey, this writer, like I followed him, or this artist. Oh, this artist seems like really cool. I remember them doing this book over here. Try something out. Like, no, I got to see what people think of it first. Like I give a shit what people think about Bloodshot or what they think about Hunter Killer that by dun 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 Mark Waid. Oh no, it's really good comic. It's actually like it's like an X-Men story that's not X-Men, and it's like probably a better X-Men story than has probably been told in like since Morrison left. Because honestly, Joss Whedon he just rehashed what Claremont did. That's really all his story arc was.
Yeah,
it's fluff. As much as I enjoyed it at the time, it was fluff. It's not this. Oh my god, it's the groundbreaking. All he did was bring back Colossus and make Kitty phase a giant bullet. That's it.
Yeah, no, it didn't. It sold well. He didn't do anything new. It was. I'm sure it's actually a lot like the criticism for Abrams for the previous Star Wars film. It was a greatest hits film, and it sold well and made money, and people like hearing greatest hits stuff every now and then. But it didn't add anything to the mythology. I mean, Morrison put stuff out that people are still using and will use 10 years from now. I mean, he added a shitload of new content to the X-Men, and so that was great. I think. And Claremont, of course, built worlds, and his stuff's still getting leveraged. But yeah, Whedon has, and that's kind of the problem with a lot of the writers. People claim
Kevin Smith, for example.
Daredevil,
just rehashing Born Again.
Yeah, come in and you rehash old storylines. You just kind of cycle some, you stir some shit around a little bit. But you bring something new to the story. It's desperate. The comics and the industry are desperate for some new things to come in and some new ideas and do some world building. And it's funny because, Donny Cates, you see what he's doing right now, and he has a lot of popularity, a lot of people happy with his books and people picking them up. And I was talking to somebody on Twitter who's like, oh, but the guy's a cuck, fuck that guy. It's like, okay, but whether you agree with him or not politically, I have no idea what I don't know. I have no idea where Cates comes from, where that's concerned. And I don't care either. He sells books, but in his titles, for better or worse, he's throwing new shit at the wall. He's trying to create new content that will live beyond him, that other writers may or may not tap into. I mean, who knows? But he's trying to do something bigger. And any writer who's coming out here who's trying to build a mythology and build content and create new characters and new IP and other things to play with, those are people who are trying to build something in the industry. The problem is there's just not many of those right now. Most are just playing it safe, stirring the same stuff up again. I use the example of the X-Men softball game. The X-Men softball game was always a break between storylines. It was a way for Claremont to kind of slow the action down and have a break between arcs, or kind of tell the readers, hey, we were at one place and now we're going to another place. It was a transitional moment. Now it feels like almost every comic is a softball game. And people they love the softball game. So it's like, let's just have a softball game every issue. And you can't do that every issue. You need to have something going on, because otherwise the comics don't matter. If you look at that run of Wade's Avengers, what occurred? I mean, did anything occur? And even when Bendis relaunched the Avengers, I mean, you have to kind of really scan your head back to think about something that happened, that mattered, that had some longevity to it. I mean, Wade's entire run, it's like, okay, there were some heroes, and then there were some younger ones there, and then they got angry because a truck was smashed or something, and they formed the Champions, and then the other team went on, and Hercules was there, I think. And then what did they do? I mean, literally, I read these books. I couldn't tell you. If you put a gun to my head right now, I'd really struggle to tell you what happened. I think there was a storyline with Kang in there a little bit, and then some Vision was acting dodgy for some reason. And
programming.
Yeah, I don't know what the fuck. I have no idea what was really going on. And now, okay, so now flip over to X-Men Gold. What's happened there? Okay, so Kitty, the mansion is in Central Park for some reason, and then some shit happened. I don't know. And then there's an alien, I think, and then there's a mean government woman, I guess. And then there was a wedding, but then it didn't happen, and Gamma got married. And okay, that's the last 2 years. Oh, and there was some guy who put anti-Israeli messages into the background of the comics. Like, that's the thing I remember most, is the artist controversy, that there was some offensive billboards in the backgrounds of comics. And there's your X-Men run. And that's painful to, I mean,
that's really pathetic. It's like, I know with the blue, gold, and all these other colors, like I was looking up, I actually had the individual issues. I either gave them away or sold them off or lost them, of the when Gladiator shows up. This is the Joe Mad run of Uncanny, like issue 340, 341, 342. It's the Christmas special where they're at Rockefeller Center, and then Gladiator shows up, battles Cannonball. And this is when Joseph was a part of the team, and then they go into space to help the Shi'ar fight the Phalanx. And then, the whole Trial Gambit. And it's a Trial Gambit trade paperback, and because it's like, oh, you bought this, Amazon's like, here, recommend me something else. And the thing it recommended me was X-Men Blue Volume 0, which is that Steven Seagal, or Steven, I think it's Steven Seagal. Seagal. Yeah, I want to say Seagal. I want to think it was like the
that would whatever. Be a very, very different book.
But with you had Chris Bacalo, you had Carlos Pacheco, and for the longest time I got so much shit. I still loved it, no matter how many people shit on me for it. That run, because this is Operation Zero Tolerance era. Cecilia Reyes, who hated mutants, she was a bigot. She was against mutants, and then turns out she is one. And her Iceman shows up and like brings a Sentinel, one of the covert sleeper Sentinels, along with him, and she has to go on the run. Wolverine, Cyclops, and Jean, and even Jubilee were locked up in a Hulkbuster base. Wolverine had the gauntlets over his claws, so he couldn't pop his claws. Cyclops had like a thing around his heart. And there was like this, I remember really creepy, is that Neil Francis Yu art. Wolverine's out there, this is Upper Zero Tolerance era, but they're out there in the desert, and there's a man who's blind. He's like, oh, I got these, they fixed my eyes. Turns out they put these artificial eyes, turns them into a sleeper Sentinel, and it was so good. And I loved it at the time, like, oh, that's so horrible, this is shit, it was shit. And like, you read that there, where they had all this action going on, Cecilia Reyes, and like, beautiful artwork too. Like, everybody looked great. Marrow looked nasty, with like, even though she didn't look as nasty when she first appeared, with like missing chunks of her hair, but it's like that short hair, like what she looked like in the Marvel vs. Capcom game, Marvel vs. Capcom 2, I believe. But everyone looked great, and then to have that as Volume 0, and then you read Volume 1 of X-Men Blue, and it's just a night and day difference.
Yeah,
because I only read tiny bits of it. I couldn't get through an entire volume of that. It's not good. These X-Men books today aren't that good. And
well, they're just meaningless. I mean, that's where it would be a funny segment. I mean, maybe this is something to do. I'm still trying to get videos out, but just where people sit down and they're tired or have a couple drinks or whatever it is, and then it's like you spin a wheel, and it's like, all right, it's going to be Daredevil 2 years ago. What happened? Good luck. And you just, I mean,
yeah, I'm blanking on that too because I was reading, I read a bit of the Soul Garney run.
Yeah,
it just didn't like I didn't like the psychic. I'm like, yeah, he's gonna be a villain, and then it turns out I was right.
yeah.
The guy that looks like Gambit. So
No,
it was just too on the nose.
Well, I think I try and read all the comics, like all of them. I mean, I have access to it, so I read most, and I'm trying to get and granted, because I'm reading a lot, I'm skimming pretty heavily, but there's whole runs of issues where you have these moments that matter, that you remember, and then you can have years go by where it's like, okay, Scott Lobel's X-Men run, summarize it, and that would be hard for me to tell you.
Well, yeah, because it was a weird time. Because I could once. Because that run, he took over right after Jim Lee left. After they kicked Claremont to the curb for Jim Lee, and then Jim Lee left. They did the Skinning of Souls, which the death of Ileana again.
Yeah.
Then they had The Wedding, which was actually really nicely done. The Wedding of Scott and Jean.
Mm-hmm.
The Executioner song in between all that.
Yep.
Then the Road to Onslaught, and then after Road to Onslaught and all that, and then you get into the before what is it? Bastion shows up.
Yep.
So it's like, yeah, I can get to about issue round 100. That's when it becomes a problem, because that's the whole Claremont stuff and the Neo and before Grant Morrison came in, it was like, kill the X-Men. It needs mercy. It needs a mercy killing bad. It got really after Zero Tolerance. Whew.
Well, it's funny though. I could sit here and you could say, okay, summarize the Morrison run. You could say, all right, so you had a distilled down X-Men group. The White Queen comes into the fold as one of the team members. We learn about Professor X's twin, sister, who's going to be a villain, and then she fucks with him for a while, and then she kind of goes away, and they meet Phantom X and Zorn, who's a sleeper, almost Magneto, but not quite. And then the sister comes back, and that made
me angry. That right there, because I remember seeing the cover, which the cover where you see the skull and you see like the star, because they listed that and then they changed it, because I think that was initially he was supposed to be basically like he's Magneto. He is Magneto-like, but he isn't Magneto.
Right.
But he's basically Chinese prisoner. It's like that would have made a great idea. Like Magneto is dead. Long live a Magneto. He's not. But this and that would be great. But they had to go do the whole. Well, it was Zorn, but like they wanted. I think the editors wanted Magneto.
Yeah.
And so that's the only thing that makes sense to me. They just like, we need Magneto in the story, because he gets. That is so creepy, that run, considering it was already in the can way before September 11th, and that when that fist of that giant sentinel hits the tower, and it's just like on September 11th, and that book came out August of 2001, and then the September issue, where like the end of that end of issue was at 115, where you see Xavier inside Cerebra, and you see like it pulls back, and you see the tower. You see Genosha and the smoke, and it's just like on September 11th.
Right.
And then that next issue, and then you see like Beast and Jean in the remains, and it looks exactly like Lower Manhattan. It gives me chills thinking about it now, because that, like, you could say it's in bad taste, but it came out before September 11th, and how creepy is that? Like, I remember reading it, and it was like, no, and I remember throwing the book down. I'm like, no, this ain't happening. Like, this ain't happening, man, because it's like it was too much. It was like way. I mean, I know Grant Morrison's talking about he's seeing aliens and he's dropped DMT and all this and that. It's like it was too on the nose, that Eos for Extinction stuff.
I got that hardcover somewhere. They've got the
omnibus, the Grant Morrison X. Yeah, I have the same thing. That's why I ain't getting rid of that.
he's got a pitch in there that kind of walks through what he was thinking and everything else. I like reading those. I liked Miller's pitch for Civil War as well. You kind of get the ideas, and reading those, Morrison's pitch and his pitch. I've seen John's pitch, and it's funny is even Wade's pitch back from when he was doing Fantastic Four. You see these stories that were pitched, and they were big stories. They were just, we're going to have somebody murdered here and the big villain here, and we're going to do big things. We're going to elevate. And everything was about, increasing the mythology and bringing in new villains and doing huge things in these pitches. And you think about that to today, and of course I'm not in the room, so I'm not hearing these pitches going on. But you read the comics and you say, what pitch? For example, going back to what pitch did Wade give for his Avengers run? I mean, hey, they're going to show up and they're going to hang out and shit will happen. I mean, there's no big idea anywhere on the horizon. Same thing with Gold. I mean, did somebody sit in a room and say, okay, here's my big pitch for Gold. The X-Men are going to be there and they're going to just fuck around. They're going to bring this random alien in, and then we're going to maybe have a wedding, but then nope, psych, it will be a different wedding. And then Rachel will have her brain manipulated with, I know we've done this before, like roughly 200 times, but this will be different because we'll do it over 2 issues. And Nightcrawler will be, have his feels hurt. Yeah, and I mean, like, oh my God, if I was Cebulski or Brevoort or whoever, and I'm listening to this, I'm like, get the fuck out of here. No, that's not a story. You're just killing time. Let's bring me a pitch where something big happens. Like, and here, go into our library archives and check out what Morrison said he was going to do, or Miller said he was going to do, or Wade said he was going to do, and give me something like that. None of these storylines, you look at them and you go, that nobody was shooting for anything here. That's why I'd love to see at some point the director's cut or the pitch that Snyder gave for Justice League. Because I got to imagine
that would be so insane right there.
Exactly. That's got to be balls out crazy. So, I mean, I would love to see that sometime. But that's what I want. I want huge, insane storylines coming out from the writers. And then when the editors going, okay, slow your roll a little bit there. That's how Civil War was. Is Miller was like, we're going to do this, and then the Hulk is going to come back in Civil War was his original plan. He's just going to fuck a bunch of stuff up. And it's like, he's going to just take out a city, and it's just going to be nuts. And the editors, you see the little notes from Joe Q and some of the others going, okay, that's too much. Let's dial it back a little bit. We can save that for another event. Great idea, but too big. And to me, that's the perfect relationship between a writer and an editor of, here's a massive story, and now we're going to pare it down a little bit, make it consumable and everything else. But there's just zero chance. That's the Marvel of today.
Yeah, that Marvel's gone. Like I was thinking, like I had a pitch idea for like if somebody was like, well, pitch an X-Men story. All right, the gay black son of Graydon Creed, so he's the grandson of Sabretooth and Mystique. He's running the Friends of Humanity. He's against mutants. He's brought Bastion in as his number 2. Nobody knows Bastion's Nimrod and a Master Mold Sentinel in a human form. Like he's been under the radar for so long. Nobody's like thought about him in a while, which is true because nobody's like used him in forever. And bringing in these sleeper sentinels, and he's got like the hatred, the fervor from mutants is like boiling. It's raging hot because like people like these are not oppressed. They're mad gods, and all it takes is for one of them. These like this because that's what I'm saying. This because. The reason I would do Graydon Creed's son would be gay and black because that's the thing with X-Men. They always say they're allegory for gay people and black people. Like, no, gay people don't have super strength and can vaporize cities with their eyes. Like that. Like same thing with black people. It's this idea that these are like the Greek gods, except for they can get pissed off because their girlfriend didn't text them back, and they might want to, use somebody with mind control or whatever and destroy them. And like they have the fault. There are those that say like, "Oh, fight for peace between like the Xavier mindset, and then you have the Magneto mindset." And honestly, if I was one or the other, I'd be Magneto because I also and who trusts a crazy bald guy who recruited a bunch of teenagers. That's the crazy thing. Like, how do you know that he didn't brainwash them to join like his cult? And that's the thing. Like, that's one thing. My forget whatever Creed his name would be. He not Apollo Creed, Adonis. There you go, Adonis Creed. His name was no, but he's like telling these people it's like their founder was a like basically giving everything, like pointing out like Xavier is the real bad guy. He recruited children for his crusade against a Holocaust survivor. you know, it's like you pulled out the obvious.
Do something to turn it on its ear. Make the editors work a little bit with having to go, okay, so your idea is too big. It's going to cause problems. I mean, that concept is great. I mean, but we need the industries. They need to encourage, and I think this is why they
ideas.
Yeah, they need just go for it. But the editors don't have the confidence right now. I've talked to now many of them, and it's clear their job duties is not to recruit huge talents and take big risks and try and shoot for big books. Their job is, as they see it, is to play it safe, bring in a book that is, not going to cause any real problems. Don't spend a lot of time on it. You're not getting paid that much. Just kind of fly under the radar. You don't want to do something that's going to piss somebody off up this chain, and just play it safe. That's what they're told to do.
Don't rock the boat. Don't rock the boat. That's and you bring it back. It comes back around because these are the same editors and same people who are like, well, it's a dying industry. I'm just in it for till I'm not in it anymore. I'm in it until the wheels come off, until they kick me out. And instead of looking for someplace else, like honestly, I get where they're coming from, but I never had a passion for security work because I did the same idea. It's like, well, I'm in here until the wheels come off. And that's what I basically did. And I never had the passion for security as I did for comics. Like if somebody said, Larry, you could do comics, you won't get, you'll probably get kicked in the teeth, hopefully not literally, but, metaphorically a lot. You won't get paid as much as you should, but you'll get to do what you love. And somebody can throw money at me. It's like, here's the thing. It's stupid. Like I've had people say, hey man, here, take this money. I'm like, no, I can't. I know it's like, part of me is like, take the money. And like other part of me is like, no, I don't feel like I owe somebody something. That's my biggest thing.
Yeah, I'm with you there.
Yeah. Cause it's like, nothing comes for free. There's always some kind of price. And it's this, a lot of people's like, no, get paid, motherfucker, get paid, that kind of thing. Like, no, have some, you can have some standards. It's like, I'm not a whore. You could, I want to earn my money honestly, and those that there's people like, yo, they're not whores, they're sex workers. Well, okay, comic workers then. I have standards and I'm not going to pull I see a lot of people like, oh, how dare they went off to me because I'm this or I'm that. Like you're some protected class. Like, to me, there's no such thing as protected class. I'm all for getting rid of like any idea of protecting. It's like society will work it out. And if society don't, well, society, should just cease to exist. But it's just so weird to see these people not have this burning fire within them. Like you have a burning fire for comics, and
I love comics. I mean, that's the funny part. And when people come at me from either end, it's like you got to understand. You can hate what I'm saying because I'm not SJW enough, or I'm not anti-S. They need a better term. Not comics gate enough. There we go. But at the end of the day, I love comics. I've loved them for decades now. I'm in to the point that I'm going to die in. So it's.
For life, you got a tattoo.
For life. Just I absolutely love comics. I love the business getting bigger. I mean it when I say it, and I know it drives some people crazy. I want all of these people to make more money, and I desperately want people to make more money, and I also want to look at why people are successful. I've said the last time, Mags gets work. Not because somewhere in the halls of DC they're checking some kind of got to have a trans person list. That doesn't make any sense. She gets the work because she networks. Like we talked earlier, she got to know writers, she got to know editors, she shopped her shit around. She's tireless around that, and she gets work. And
it's out there, people, and like we said before in a different stream, all the people, oh, how horrible Mags' work is. Guess what? You're talking about it. You're making it known. So when you type it in Google, it comes up a lot.
It's exactly right. It's free promotion. You're helping the person come along. And I mean, look, as weird as it sounds, I would rather have somebody that is working aggressively to network and shop themselves and push to get into comics than a lot of the people who are in comics who are just completely brain dead, tuned out, in it for a pathetic paycheck and just phoning in it every day. I don't care for a lot of Mag's work. Attorney Girl was fine at the beginning. I mean, I was just pleased it sold better than I thought. So, hey, I'm happy. I will promote it all day long for that reason. But it's a style that doesn't appeal to me. But I'm not offended that it's there. And I do hope it brings in a new audience because, Christ, I want to sell the books. So by all means, come in. But I can give you dozens and dozens of creators who are completely give no shit about what they're doing at all. And they have jobs and they're churning out garbage that nobody likes. I mean, Mags has an audience. So, hey, at least not a big audience, but at least there's somebody there. And I'd like to get to the point that we are truly working on the really quality people. But there's so much just chum in the water right now that you got to get. There's people who have no business doing anything. And they are not the people that are talked about on YouTube and online every day. They're the people who are just taking up space. Those people need to move on to another industry first.
Yeah, those people are a problem. Like, that's the thing. A lot of these people, and it's not just these creators like, oh, that book, I hate that book and hate what they, but you got to think, if it's successful, if it's moving product, like, as much as it might pain you, that's good. That's good for, like, it's the thing. It's like, I don't like it. I'm not a fan of this, but it's selling you books. It's bringing people in. And hey, if that person, I used to be fans of certain people, and then my taste changed and I moved over to something else because I kept buying the book. And that right there, it's like, your tastes don't always stay the same. It's like, I used to be a huge Grant Morrison fan. Everything I get my hands on, Kill Your Boyfriend. I even tried to buy some of his old, when he was doing like the self-published comics, in Scotland and stuff. I tried to get my hands on those, and they were going for like $100 for like a 20-page comic or whatever. It looked like it was beat up real bad. And now I'm like, I didn't care for Multiversity. I think a lot of his stuff's more missed than hit now.
I agree. Yeah.
And it's like, I used to hate Mark Miller. Oh, I like Wanted. I hated it. Civil War, hated it. But then Starlight, Chrononauts, Super Crooks. And then now that Netflix has it, and Netflix, how the quality of their content is, you're not going to get a Starlight that's worth a damn. Imagine a Starlight from like Fox. Now you're going to get like the Netflix version of Starlight. Oh God, it's going to be like, like Flash Gordon on a Netflix budget. Oh, Jesus Christ, save us now. I mean, it's just, it's this so, there's passion there.
I hope. I mean, he's maniacal about being involved as a producer. He says anyway, and then the content comes out, and it's like, you were not involved. But I just, yeah, I think it's interesting that people. I mean, I guess people online, they gravitate toward the people who are going to talk back, the feuds that they can get into, and I get that. But of Marvel's editorial staff, Heather Antos was nowhere near the bottom, and that is sad, but nowhere near the bottom. I mean, there are plenty of editors still hanging out there who like have basic spelling errors in the intro to their books, and I mean, I'm sorry, that's just that's a death right there. You can't. You can't fail at that very basic job when you're laying out pages and you've got the little red squiggly mark under the word that says you misspelled something and you missed that. I mean, the computer's doing the work for you. Just come on. But yet, Antos was the one that was in the front of the picture with the milkshakes, and she, got back and then she did shenanigans. She's not far from blameless. She did definite shenanigans and tried things in the background with people, and that's bad behavior, no doubt. But all of that is Twitter drama. It doesn't sell books or not sell books. It doesn't matter. The actual stuff that's going into the books that are going on the shelves, there are a large host of people who just have no business being in comics, and it has nothing to do with whether they're men, women, black, white, gay, straight, any number of things. Tamara Bonvillain is a good colorist. Terrible attitude online, no doubt about it.
Oh yeah, that's the thing. It's like this.
Terrible.
That's the worst thing, because
Absolutely
it's like
terrible.
All it's going to do is hurt the creators she's working with. Or
Yeah.
Whatever. Whatever.
I'm
I
like,
don't know how polite you want to be.
I'm like Peterson. I'm like, I don't have the energy to remember, so I just like, what do you want to be called? I'll just go with that. I don't have the energy. But Bonvillain is I mean, absolutely one of the worst social media attitudes and presence, and absolutely tries to pull crap in the background and all the rest, and that's terrible. I think it's really awful behavior. Shouldn't do it. But the coloring is okay. And
there's better colorists out there, but that's the thing. It's like she got
got the there are worse
because of people to know, and that's all these like panels and how to break in the business. If you're an artist, find a writer. If you're a colorist, find an artist. If you're a writer, find an editor, or find an artist. Because if that artist likes you, wants to work with you, it's just like, go out there. It's like college. College shouldn't be about education. It's like, hey, meet somebody that can get you a job someplace else. It's that you're not going there for knowledge anymore. But
no, absolutely no. To somebody, I have no idea how to pronounce that first name, but you're absolutely right in the chat. It's nobody. What do we care? I mean, at the end of the day, it sounds crazy, but what do we really care what these people think? And I say that kind of half in, half out. I definitely agree and subscribe to the idea that if you're a comics professional, or if you're a professional in any job, and you show up online, you start acting like an asshole, then that is wrong. You're hurting your business, you're hurting the people you work with, you're isolating fans, it's not professional, and eventually social media guidelines and your employer will cut that shit out because it's bad for business. That is absolutely true, on one hand. On the other hand, I will say, if the work in the comic is good, if the published work is good, we are at a state in the industry right now where I will put up with a lot of goofy behavior online if you're putting in good work, because there are a ton of people that are putting in absolute garbage work, and they don't act like assholes online, but they also, because of their bad work in the comic, they're not selling comics. So they are actively, directly hurting the industry. Whereas somebody's bad attitude on Twitter is probably hurting the industry. Somebody who can't spell right, who puts the pages out of order, whose coloring is so crappy you can't tell which character is which, who's writing in a comic just goes nowhere. It's $5 for a story that you won't remember 2 months from now. Absolutely true with the comment we put up with John Byrne. I mean, Byrne, people revere John Byrne, and he is just a mega asshole. I mean, at cons, in person, on his message boards, Byrne was a nut job, and it's, I mean, people forget about these things. It's kind of like the people now who are like, man, I can't believe Eric Larson's an asshole. I'm like, 25 years ago, Larson and Peter David had epic feuds that were just the most petty, nonsensical BS ever. It should surprise nobody that Larson acts this way now, because he always has. But John Byrne's a good example. He's a great writer. His art is wonderful. If they put him on a book right now, I would buy it. Lots of people would buy it. It would sell book comics, and so I respect the shit out of that. And so good for him. But yeah, his online behavior is terrible. But it goes to prove that if somebody's work is quality, you will put up with a lot of nonsense.
That's the biggest thing right there, because a lot of these people don't realize the fact that back in the day, these people, Comics Journal, other places, like they were conventions, there was yelling at each other, there was bickering, fighting. Like one thing, the whole Tom King thing with because honestly, I could believe the bodyguard thing, considering Jerry Conway got the death threats back in the day for the whole, for the death of Gwen Stacy. And I'm like, you know what? I could believe people are that crazy because people just say stupid, crazy things. And then it's like, of course, another fake thing, another bait and switch from Tom King. It's like,
it's true.
He like, or bat and switch, as it were. But this whole I've been throwing this. I've been doing these new comic book day aftermath things on Thursdays. Like me and my friend Matt talk about comics, and I've been like railing against Tom King. It's like, you know what? I used to like Tom King. Now I won't even bother because he's a CIA plant. He's a false flag. he's trying to ruin comics with his bullshit and things. Because even though the editors and PR, they put that stuff out in the press statement, which that right there was just dumb, and that hurt. I guarantee that's going to. I wonder what sales are going to be like after.
Well, I mean, it's funny. Everything's a game of inches. So I mean, Batman sells amazing. So it's like, you know, you could do a lot before you start deteriorating that number. But where you'll see it hurt is I mean, the sales, at least in my shop, Mr. Miracle, are not as strong as they were. Granted, it's a limited series; it's a B character, but you lose credibility with fans. The interest in Sanctuary is pretty low. Marvel's DC's pushing it very hard, but it's not hitting the right tones. So I think these moments where you have a bait and switch with your fans, it sticks to you. And so it's not going to hurt Batman at the moment because it is a bit of a juggernaut. It's interesting. The thing that will hurt Batman more is this detour into the Mr. Freeze storyline where we get to see Bruce Wayne as a member of the jury. That storyline people seem more pissed about than the wedding in a lot of weird ways, because it's like, oh, I don't know, 3 issues now of this shit. I mean, I don't know. I didn't want to see Bruce Wayne debate nuance of what constitutes a criminal act and a proper I mean, nobody cares. It's
dude, like, I'm glad. I had no clue that was a thing. It's like, you got Lee Weeks, you got Elizabeth Breitweiser on the colors, and this is you give them 12 Angry Men, the comic. Fuck you.
Yeah, no, it's look. I mean, granted, there's something for everyone, and there are people who fan, but a lot of people are coming in. They're like, okay, we had this kind of big build up, and we had a romance storyline, if you will, with Catwoman, and there was some action there, but you know, kind of a slow burn, and then it didn't happen, and now we're going into a jury story. It's like, at some point, are we going to get Batman doing something significant? Because you know, where it suffers is that you have Batman there with the jury, and then right next to it you've got Scott Snyder like, hey, look at this shit. I've got Batman hidden inside Superman's brain with Lex Luthor and Martian Manhunter. The Joker's got, like I said, Joker's got a chainsaw, and the Flash is losing his speed, and there's planets and shit blowing up, and there's some new colors. Like, those 2 comics don't sit well next to each other on a shelf. So anyway,
it's this idea of, understand this. We got a human. Tom King, from where I stand, he's a Marvel writer working at DC. He's doing Marvel things, and like with the whole Sanctuary thing, you mean Hugbox, the comic book? This, you know, that's all I can see it as. I don't see it as this. Wow, this is a story that's gonna, you know, this is a concept that's gonna last, you know, time immemorial. No, this is like Damage Inc. or whatever, like what it was called. Like, you know, like, oh, these are the people that take care of the cities after the heroes and villains destroy it. It's a who gives a shit idea that would be okay as maybe a backup or a subplot for like a few issues or something, but it's where they can go unwind and talk about the feelings, and it sounds so dumb, and not in a Snyder Justice League way, blow up the moon and mutant 8 men and chainsaws inside. Like, it's inner space, but with chainsaws and Hawk girls and shit like that. It's nothing like that. It's this. Like,
I don't get it. I mean, I've seen some advanced material on it now, and I understand what they're going for and the story that they want to tell. It's a very personal story, I understand, but at the same time, it's one of those things where you can't take certain things out of the box in comics, because once you do that, then you've broken kind of the suspension of disbelief. It's like if for example, you ever did the storyline where they revealed that, you know, Superman's super sperm would blow people up, then you can't ever come back from that. You can't ever have Superman in a romantic situation in the future because you know where that's going. So you don't talk about it, because the whole concept is bizarre, breaks the character, gross, all the rest. You just don't want to, you don't want to open up that door. So the idea of having a superhero, PTSD kind of therapy area, it's just weird. Are we saying that now whenever there's some kind of fucked up thing that goes on in comics, that Batman's going to go spend some time in Sanctuary to kind of talk over his feelings? I mean, no, he's not going to do that. And like, why would he do that? And if he doesn't do that, then what's the point of Sanctuary? Is it just for the B-list superheroes who can't handle it? And then if some superheroes can't handle it, why are they heroes? I mean, then you're definitely designating them as the shitty team. It's like, oh, if you come to the Justice League, these guys don't need therapy, but maybe the Titans need therapy because they're not as together. I mean, you just ask too many questions. It opens up too many things that, as comic fans, you're like, can we just get back to some people beating the shit out of the Joker again? I mean, that's what
exactly. Like, if you want to talk about your feelings, have Batman on a gargle for maybe a half page and a half with internal monologuing or thought balloons like that right there. Like, it's raining and it's like, so you visually show that it's sad and dark and he's gloomy and moody, and then his words too, so overemphasize it. And then he sees one of Penguin's goons loading like some human cargo, like they're sex trafficking, and he goes down there and blows out the tires, and he kicks the guy's face in. And it turns out only the girl, there's more girls in a different vehicle, and he's got to find out where, like, doing some detective work and doing some investigating and all that. That's a book I'd like to read.
Yeah, I think even King is breaking his own model, because in the Jury storyline, you got Bruce Wayne goes to the bathroom, and he's like, he gets pissed and rips a urinal off the wall. And he's like, oh, God damn it, fuck this thing. I was, left at the altar by Catwoman. I'm pissed. And he's tearing the bathroom.
Public property. It's a courthouse.
It's a court. So yeah, he's doing this. I mean, I kind of wonder, you're in a courthouse. I mean, if I go into a building and tear a urinal off the wall and throw it across the room, I think I'm going to get, somebody's going to come in like, hey, what did you eat? What's going on in here? But Batman just does this. And so are we going to get an episode or a comic in the future where Superman's going to show up in Wonder Woman and like, hey, Bruce, you seem kind of depressed. Maybe you should go off to Sanctuary and have this, this therapy session. And Bruce is going to be like, oh, fuck that. I'm not going to talk to any therapist. I mean, nobody wants this comic. Nobody wants that. Nobody wants this to happen. So what it was again, all it does is it says, hey, if you're Wally West, then, maybe you need to talk out your feelings. But if you're, Barry Allen, then you're in good shape, and, you can cope with that.
Barry Allen's got a rabbi at DC. I mean, I think there's a cop term, whatever. I heard one of those cop shows or something. It's like somebody watching out for him. And that right there, it's like, I like when the 90s, everybody like this shit talked to 90s. We talked about that before, but like, you had legacy heroes. I actually love the idea that to be a hotshot fighter pilot and test pilot, you'd have to be crazy. And when Coast City's destroyed and Hal Jordan turns the parallax, I like the fact that this is just a dude who snapped. He's like, sure. Fuck all y'all. And then no, it's the yellow fear parasite. I hated that. I hated that reveal. Because
because it's you can't. There's certain questions in comics that you just. And this is actually now, I like a lot of what Miller does, because he does shoot for the moon. But one of the bad things he does is he introduces things into comics that kind of ruin the character. Like if you showcase in the comic that the Invisible Woman can just pop a little bubble over somebody's head and then cut off the oxygen, and 30 seconds later they're unconscious, then at some point in future issues, you have to ask yourself, like, why isn't she doing this for all the villains? Like, because, I mean, is she just like some kind of crazy masochist? And she's like, well, this time I want to see Johnny actually have a fight. I mean, if you could just end all the fights right away with your power set, then what are you doing later? Like, you're just screwing around now at that point. So this is the problem when you introduce certain things into comics, is you can introduce things in that then ruin future comics, because it no longer makes sense why the heroes aren't taking advantage of these things. This is why the bar with no name or things like that are a better idea. It's like, okay, the hero's a little sad. He goes into the bar, has a drink, and there's some kind of rules around the bar that you can't get into a bar fight there, and then you leave the bar and you're okay. Like that's a way better idea than special therapy sanctuary, where, I mean, in this in the latest issue of the Flash, like, people show up and like Superman and Wonder Woman to take Wally off to Sanctuary. I mean, like, the heroes are escorting him in there. Like, what is this place
One
exactly?
floor of the cuckoo's nest, like
Yeah, I mean, it's just a bad idea. It's just a terrible idea for UBC. But I mean,
unless we get Apache Chief ripping, smothering Wally West with a pillow, and then ripping a water fountain and throwing it out the window to escape Sanctuary. Maybe then I might be interested in Chuck.
well, and you got Harley Quinn, who's going to be kind of used as a therapist in this thing. And that also doesn't make any sense. I mean, yes, that's her background, but okay, so you're telling me that Wally West remembers that he has a family, but his family was erased through some time flashpoint shenanigans, and now he's super unhappy, and he's got, I don't know if it's really PTSD that his family was erased, but whatever it was, he's got some problems. So we're going to haul him off to the special therapy zone, and he's going to get therapy from Harley Quinn, who is a lunatic and hangs out with the Joker. I mean, whose idea was this? This is a bad idea.
It's bad editorial, and then not to mention the costume designs for I know it's off topic a bit, but the new Red Hood design, which I guess they released in that DC Nation, which I think it was you that pointed it out. The DC Nation's basically like a wizard, DC's version of Wizard, and it feels a lot like it in that design. I'm not like I said, I've said before, I'm not the best artist in the world, but I could design a hell of a lot better Red Hood costume than that. That is horrible. He looks like a cheap Mortal Kombat like created character or something. It doesn't look right. It's just awful. And I think it's Pete Woods doing the artwork. If somebody said so on Twitter, I don't know if that's the truth, but it just looks bad. And like, I know the book isn't selling that well. It's been going down in sales and everything, but I don't know if it'll make it past its like 25th issue or whatever. I think it's up to like 23 now or something.
Yeah, no, it's not a top seller, but it has a predictable fan base. Stability, it's a weird state in comics right now, because stability is almost more important than numbers in a lot of cases. If you can count on something happening for a 6-month run, that's more valuable in a lot of cases than risks. It's a nature of the industry, but anyway, but I probably need to wrap up pretty soon.
Oh yeah, I actually looked up some stuff. The stats you're looking for. Okay, Comic-Con numbers, May 2003. That's when the first issue Wolverine came out.
Yep.
Wolverine #1. That's the Greg Rucka, Derek Robertson run. 157,739 copies sold. Comic-Con numbers, of course, which is so funny because like look at the Wolverine #1, Batman 615, Hush Arc, Ultimates #10. That's the and I believe that's the first run. First run of Ultimates. Then Ultimate Spider-Man 40 and 41, and those first 5 are all 100,000 copies, 100,000 plus. So that's and not any like issue 1. The only issue is issue 1. Everything else is standard Batman arc. Granted, that was Jim Lee, but and so I looked at the issue 19, which is the issue before the Mark Millar run, and so we have Wolverine #19, and this is a $2.25 cover price. God, I miss those days. 65,042, so 65,042 copies. That was issue 19. Issue 20 and 21 both came out in October of 2004. And so issue number 20 of Wolverine sold 116,000 copies, 720, and then issue 21, 83,506. So you're pushing, nearly 200,000 copies Wolverine that month.
Yeah.
So that's pretty good. And that's like Identity Crisis #5 was out, and that was the #1 book with Superman 210, which is another Jim Lee book, which is the I hated that arc though. That's the one with the not quite Jim Gordon and disappearing people. It was so dumb. I'm not a Zarello fan, but I was reminded that Secret War, Bendis. Oh God, that was so bad. That was my first indication. I kind of hated Bendis that book.
Yeah,
you can have the best artist in the world. It just doesn't matter.
Yeah, no, there was, I mean, part of how we'll know the industry is getting healthy again, and it's not, I've said all these things that are negative on the industry. It's not going to collapse tomorrow. It's not terminal. None of that is true, but it is unhealthy. And we are sinking to a place where comics will be firmly established as a niche, which means it won't die. It just is going to kind of float around in the same world as, I don't know, other niche hobbies. It's like the analogy earlier. It's not they're not the primary toys you see in Target. They're the ones that are kind of shuffled off in the back, that the collector toys. And comics can be more than that. It should be more than that. It's been more than that in the past. And one of the healthy indicators will be that a storyline can come out with a new creative team, and you'll see those numbers pop up, and you don't have what you have now, which is the vast majority or maybe all comics are just on a continual slow decline. You have a strong number one, and then everything's erosion from there. And while comics, that's natural, that's happened with comics, has happened for years. Publishers could still pop sales with storylines or with important events that would cause the numbers to cycle up. And now you see that the majority, and you can look at the numbers, the majority of things that pop up are relaunches, they're number ones. They have to go to a kind of false, reboot of the issue in order to get that kind of reaction. And so that's just, it's an indicator of unhealthy industry. It's an indicator of an industry that's becoming a niche industry. And that happening simultaneously with all the media attention is it's just baffling. It's money being left on the table.
It's perfect storm for getting people's attention, but nobody's actually taking advantage of it because, like you said, they've resigned themselves to the fact that it's dying. It's a dying format. It'll be all digital. These, the death cult. We need to depose the members of the death cult and get comics. Get eyes back on comics. Get them prices down somehow. I mean, if this printing partnership program that Peter Samedi Alterna is doing, like you're hook you up, like they're doing all the pre-press apparently. I guess he might be getting somebody to help out with that. I guess I don't know because dude, it's like a lot to do. I'm thinking he could do a lot, but that might be even more. Like you get a bunch of people coming through, but if this happens, that means people can get their comics out. I could get my comics out there to it. I could sell mine to a shop, for half of what I asked for the cover price, and so they can make, whatever the like the diamond kind of deal without having, like it'd be like direct sales if the shop takes it, or like where I could cover shipping as well, and like getting books in people's hands on a regular basis. Make it not necessarily ongoing, but maybe a series of mini-series or something. But
more regularly,
regular content, not just these pops like, oh, this made $500 million, $500,000, whatever, some crazy number, and then it's like a year in between projects, or like between that project, just because that person's doing that's another thing. Writers are the problem. Writers have watch out for those pesky writers. They always starting some shit. Doesn't matter which side of the aisle. They're always starting some shit. But I have one last thing before we wrap up.
Yeah.
When you buy comics, and you buy comics, correct? You're at your shop.
Oh yeah.
Do you actually go through the books and make sure there's pages aren't falling out? And do you do that, right?
Yeah. I mean, yes and no. Well, first off, it's you usually have an indicator that there's something wrong. So it's I mean, very, very rare that the comics come in, they look good. I mean, we're putting them in bags and boards, so that we're touching the comics. And if something's going to be wrong, and there often is something wrong, there's a fold or a crease or a tear or something, it's typically on the cover. It's typically, or if it's interior, you can tell from the outside of the comic that it's messed up. Now, it does happen that a page is missing or something's falling out or stapled out, and we miss it. But that's usually one-off. It's not line-wide. So if it happens and customers have come in and said, "Hey, this comic's all fucked up," and we replace it. We usually no questions asked. You can tell if somebody's manipulated themselves, and I kind of live by the rule of, nobody in their right mind is going to buy a perfectly good comic book, take it out to their car, fuck it up, and then bring it in for a refund. I mean, just nobody's There'll be very weird behavior. I'm sure there are people out there, but it doesn't happen very often. And then we pay attention to the forums. Somebody will spot that a comic's screwed up, and they'll say, "Hey, people should check, this run of Suicide Squad that happened a couple months ago. There's a weird interior page defect," and then if we see it, then we'll pull it in. So I mean, it happens. Yeah.
Well, the reason I ask is when I was a kid, I couldn't go to a comic shop, like I said, our way, and it's not changed since. And so I was maybe about 10. No, actually older than that. Had to be about, I was like 13 years old, maybe around the age 12, 13 years old. And one Christmas, I wanted some comics, and so I put on a list. And one of the comics was Venom Lethal Protector #1, because big Venom fan, of course.
Mm-hmm.
90s, the red full cover. So I get that part of my Christmas present. So I go off, and we're staying with some family up north, and I go the corner of the room and I go read my comic, because there was a table and a little light and everything. I'm going to sit at the table. Everybody else is in the living room at my aunt and uncle's house. I'm over here reading this comic. He's like, "Oh, go read your comic, Larry." So go open up the bag and board, take the comic out, and open the comic up, and something falls out of the comic. I'm thinking it was like a bookmark, or like those old comics that have the mail away little things or whatever, or cards, like a lot of comics would have like the card stapled in the center. Thought maybe the card had fell out, like those like perforated kind of deals, like Ultra Fleer, comic. It was a photo on a Polaroid of two sleazy women in a seedy motel, and it burned in my brain, because like this thing's supposed to be here. This is wrong, and they're like in teddies and stuff, like negligee, whatever,
Right.
And like they were disgusting looking. I remember that they looked like hookers, like they probably were hookers, and it was in this Venom Lethal Protector. And I remember seeing this, like, oh, they're gonna think, like, I was thinking, because my aunt was extremely, still is, religious. I mean,
Yikes.
she's close your eyes and then wave back and forth with your hand up, that kind of religious, like, and so I was like, oh no, I'm gonna get the worst part, because I wasn't worried about getting hit or beat or anything. I was worried about getting like a lecture and a talking to and having to listen to that stuff. So I tore up the picture and then rolled up my sleeve and buried my hand in the trash and tried to put the picture down at the deep bottom part of the trash where no one would go looking for it. Like, this didn't happen. This didn't happen. So I was like wondering if like found anything going through.
That's a new one, like, man. That's a new one. Yeah, I haven't had that. It's an interesting prank. But again, we're bagging and boarding things, so I think that would be that's not going to come from Diamond. I mean, though that would be a new one. No, the thing the thing that's happened along those lines, and this screws me on a regular basis, is Diamond does a very goofy job of noting when there's content that is questionable. And I mentioned, Magic Order #1 has a penis in it, and so the comic comes in. Typically, the goal, because they're in late, depending on when people show up, we're frantically putting stuff in because we want to go home and try and relax before the next day. And so we're shoving stuff in bags and we're putting it up. And oftentimes, I say we're, but it's one person. Sometimes I'm stuck with it, sometimes others. And then we put it up on the shelf, and then some point the next day, somebody's like, "Hey, by the way, did you know that there's a penis in this thing?" And then we're like, oh, fuck, now we're going back to the shelf and we're putting a little like sticky note in there because at least in our area, there are laws that if we sell something like that to a kid, then we're in trouble. So, and they do not, I mean, the labeling, I was not a big comic code authority guy. That was annoying, and some of the stuff they looked about was not healthy for the industry. But now it's kind of it's turned into a good luck if you find it kind of mentality, and that's not helpful for anything. I mean, it's one of those things where they catch you once, you never get fooled twice. So like Saga, we mark and we just know that that's a title that often has stuff in it, so just be cautious about it. But we get surprised by this stuff, and unfortunately, that's one of the hazards of carrying indie books, is that you have to look closely, or stuff happens. And it's happened a couple times where parents come in like, "How you dare you sell this to my kid?" And I'm like, "Okay, I didn't know. Sorry, very sorry. Honestly, sorry." But that's the thing that gets us. I can picture it. You told the story very well. I can picture it in my head.
I actually made a short story. I did a comic. It was a square bound, like square printed comic. It looks like about like smaller than like those storybooks like you'd get. It was called Boats, Boats, based on a true story, and they're all like stories that happened to me. And it's
Nice.
actually, and there's like a 3-page story called Sexmas. And it was very sexist. I think it was called. Like I think there's an initial title for it, but it is like just like shocked me. Like all of it's real. The only thing I changed was like if I deleted some people like to make it briefer the story, because like there was like more than one person involved. Like to streamline it, but never. It really is the way it happened. There's some stories I was gonna put in there and like that person's still alive.
Oh, yeah.
I don't want them to ever come across this because they'll kick my ass, or at the very least cause me a lot of trouble. But yeah, it's like that kind of stuff. It was so sleazy. I actually drew it exactly how I imagined. It's one of the few times I actually see it in my head and actually put it on paper. But speaking of penis and comics, Spider-Man Reign #1, Carrie Andrews putting Peter Parker's Willie.
Yeah, stuff. I mean, that stuff goes down, and it's just something to watch out for. It's a silly thing. You don't want to get caught for the dumb things, and that's a dumb one. We got it just happens. Miller has done this to me a few times, so I should know better.
Miller. Yeah. Well, I guess it's the one few times you actually get to see Oliver Coipel draw a penis, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh God! And I guess with that, we'll wrap this up. And thank you again for everybody who joined us. And like, wow, this incredible best stream I ever had. Best stream.
Oh,
no, I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding. How many times I say that Peter Cimetti, Alternative Comics, jumped in the chat. It's like, oh, he wants to come on. It's like, oh no, I was just saying yes to the money. So, oh well. So this is a great stream. So thank you everyone that joined us. I know, it took time out of your busy schedule. So
yeah, no problem. It's enjoyable. I love it. Starving now. I need to get some dinner. But yeah, it's fun, and I was glad the people came, and we should do this again soon.
Oh, you got it, man. And I will go ahead and wrap this up. So good night and good luck to everyone. Until next time, Larry King signing off.